Saturated, that's what you assume. The story's over now, I must conclude. I am conflicted, watching where I step still, hanging in the balance, not the life I want to live. I want to take it all, standing tall, fear outweighed the person you are. Oh, break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
Alright, welcome everybody, welcome to another SRO Corsa competition stream. This time we are back with another 2.4 hour event. As per last time, we are doing the same driver swaps as we usually do. Or this time we've got 12 teams signed up here. Some familiar names, some a little bit less perhaps. We've got some new drivers on the server as well, which is always a lot of fun here. Although it is quite a small set of cars this time around. But so be it, I guess. This is obviously just a practice for the SRO events that we're doing later on. So there's nothing on the line here, obviously. Anyways, I am once again back with Alex, aka Radio as well. Hello, Alex. How's it going?
Hello, hello. Very well, thank you so much. How are you today?
I am, well, a little bit tired, coming off 2 days of full-time motorsports casting at the TT circuit in Assen. A fan favorite for all the MotoGP fans out there. Well, it was fun, but it was also tiring, so yeah. So be it, I suppose.
I'm sure you got some great, insights after doing all that. Bring back to the ACC competition.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Obviously, it's a very different kind of commentary you're doing there. Like, it looks the same, but trust me, it isn't. And there definitely is a massive difference, right? Because, for example, here, I've got my cameras that I can control there. I just gotta watch out of the window and see what I can actually see. Or I'm standing on the track myself.
Right.
It's a very different environment. Plus, in these environments, you know, IRL, there's not just one screen with data. There's 5. So that's always a big change. Now, obviously, I didn't have to use those just yet, but normally I would. But yeah, so it kind of feels nice to just calm down with some sim racing broadcasts from time to time, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's a nice, relaxing way to start your week, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, my week already started very early in the morning. But now finally some time to kind of blow off some steam. Let go of any stress. So obviously tomorrow we gotta go to school again, so still got a long week ahead of us. At least for me. I don't know how it is about you, but
no, I'm off. I'll be doing probably nothing tomorrow, so back to work on the weekends. So I guess it's my weekend, as it were.
Those are always the best ones, right? The one where you don't have to do much. You can just sit back and relax.
Yeah, no complaints from me.
And how's that been with your 4-day event that you did? What event was it, by the way? Was it Valorant or?
No, we just wrapped the. It's called Get on My Level. It's one of the biggest Super Smash Bros. Tournaments in North America. So we had a big. What am I looking for here? Big stage to put up and take down, and all the production gear that we had. So lots to do, but it was a lot of fun, and wouldn't have traded it for anything.
Sounds like a blast. Now, there's been a couple things that I wanted to start off by pointing out here. First of all, we've got some new drivers on the grid. Van de Wegen and de Klerk, for example, which are new, which is always a great sign here. The BOP has changed significantly, and it's mainly the BMW here that has taken a big hit. It went from minus 40 kilos, so 40 kilos removed to make it faster, to plus 8 kilos. So It's going to be a little bit of a change up that they're going to have to get used to with the current BOP changes. But it's obviously a little bit different for everybody here. Although obviously that is quite significant, having 50, basically 50 extra kilos to take with you here.
That's going to be a huge change, and we'll have to see if the big drivers here are affected too much by it. Michael Thomas, of course, currently sitting in first, so maybe not.
For example, but the other like point of view that you've got with it as well is the fact that you now, like, it shouldn't make a difference because the car is still equally as fast. The only thing that's changed here is that some people did faster laps, you know, faster hot laps on this track. So they realized, like, hey, okay, in terms of the absolute best, yeah, we're doing this much, so therefore we should make it a little bit slower for everybody. Because that's how it works now. It basically goes off hot laps. Which cars are the quickest around what circuits, and how do we change that up here? Now, luckily, Kunos allows us to have custom BOPs running in the server. We swapped over to the AOR BOP rather than the low fuel motorsports BOP. So it's going to be a interesting change up as well. As there seem to be some problems with the current LFM BOP. Now, I'm not very much up to date when it comes to the BOP at low fuel motorsports. Although it is a given that it definitely makes a difference. Being two very separate platforms here. Now we are into qualifying with 12 teams doing their thing. We've got some Christies out there again. Obviously, got Jack Christie currently in the car for 3CD Racing with a new livery, that looks like. So also revamping their liveries. That's always fun to see. Amigos had their new ones. Now we've got Jack Christie getting the new ones here. All thanks to Tommaso Bocci, who has made them specifically for us as well. Very much appreciated as well, Tommaso. And, well, if you want to see that one in action, here you see one of them. That is the new Amigos Chris Tedder livery here. The McLaren has never looked as good as now. And, well, it's always fun to see a little bit of a change up with the liveries here. And obviously, you're allowed to change liveries as much as you want and whenever you want here. Brought for some interesting change ups here. Here we've got codename Smash once again. Aaron Sparks behind the wheel for now. Our beloved American and my beloved taxi driver. Obviously the one getting me from and to Donington Park, which is probably still the best race weekend I've been to ever in my life. And I've been to a lot of race weekends, trust me.
I dropped out for a second there by accident, but I think I should be back now.
Yeah, we can hear you again.
Okay, amazing.
At least I can. I don't know if the stream can, but I think we'll be fine. Well, let's say that LFM BOP had BMW M4 minus 40. Now it has plus 8. Yes, that's what we figured out. It was interesting to see that change happening. And I don't know how accurate it is and what that will do to the cars. But obviously it's a pretty big blow if you are already one of the slower drivers. And suddenly have to take all that extra kilos with you as well. That's quite devastating, isn't it? But so be it. Just gotta deal with it, of course. As qualifying said, it's halfway point here. Now the interesting thing is here, it's not unusual to see that some of the drivers actually swap midway through quali. Obviously it's not a very meta thing to do, but some drivers like to do it just to get them all familiar with the track. Get a feel for the car again right after practice. But it's going to be interesting as well to see how they deal with that. But at the moment it doesn't look like we've seen much change-ups here yet. Well, if it takes some more mass from that car, we'll start having a negative weight. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough as well, to be fair. But yeah, so be it. Now this is Misano, a track that was actually used in a very recent GT3 championship as well. The Fanatec GT World Challenge it was, if I'm not mistaken. Where we saw our beloved Alan Block go there as well. Actually happened to cross through Imola, which is where Formula 1 was this weekend. So I guess someday I gotta fly into Italy and see what actions is, you know, for herself. Now the great thing is here, we've got Monza, Imola and Misano. They're not actually too far apart, like 2 hours by train at max, which means that you could very technically just book like a round trip with 3 different race weekends all around, and you know, see every single beautiful Australian track that we've got. So maybe one day I'll go. Although right now it's unfortunately not possible, as I am a student, and you know how the student life is sometimes. It's kind of tough.
I certainly do.
Yeah, you do, but thing is though, like that's what I noticed as well. When I left my, you know, hourly job in the theme park, it's like, well, I don't have a set income anymore, which is gonna affect me in the long run. But it's like, it's not too bad, but you just gotta think about it. Like right now, I've got a couple €100 waiting for me, but I don't know when I'm gonna get them. And well, in the worst case scenario, I'm not even sure if I'll get them, right? So yeah, it's pretty weird. And then sometimes you get 0, and sometimes you get a couple thousand. It's just such a weird business, having to do these things your own. But it's been a pleasant journey so for now, and allows me to get on the mic a lot more. Yeah, promise that Imola is closed almost all year long. Absolutely. I did hear this actually before, but it is definitely the most stunning track in Italy, at least in my opinion. And I would love to visit back one more time here. Now, I've got to think, when was the last time that I actually did a Imola race? It was probably Formula Racing League, but it was very, very long ago here. Not a track you get to see very often. Obviously, Kunos is a Italian game developer, so therefore they have a certain love for Italian racetracks. And we've got all the major ones in the game, at least Monza, Imola, Misano, and then we've got in regular set of course we've got Vallelunga as well, which is obviously not in this game, as there's no GT cars that race on it, unfortunately. Well, that maybe could change. Hey, Jack Christie, how's it going, mate? Wait, you're... Okay, you're no longer driving. See, that makes sense. I was like, what? How is he driving and racing at the same time? I have no pace today. Have you considered going faster?
That's good advice, actually.
See, I know things. This is why I'm an IRL motorsports commentator now, because I just know so much more than they do.
You can lay down this level of analysis that was previously never possible.
It's amazing, right? Just having that.
It is. I can feel the aura. It's just quite inspiring.
Yeah, I was about to say, just immediately inspired now. Well, that's going to be interesting for sure. We've got a couple drivers on fast laps. Here is Chris Setter, currently almost half a second shaved off his timer, which would put him at the top of the pack here. My guess would be somewhere around P4. Where does that put him then if he crosses the line? Well, it puts him in P4. As expected, Delta was ringing out there. Marchionne is also doing great right now. 4/10 shaved off already. Same goes for Nico Handke, who's a little bit further back down the field. So those are drivers we're going to be watching. They're going to be trying to improve later on there. Shameless says, or Tommaso Bocci, the spoiler, the track is there since 1953, so I still don't understand why they still listen to these people. I don't know. Could it be because of like sounds and that kind of stuff? Marchionne there solidifies his position in P3 for now. Søren Sparks right around the corner, but he's quite a bit slower this lap round, so most likely not going to be increasing anymore. Got Dan Pickles out there on a brilliant lap so far. Where is he on track? There he is. The Free CD Racing currently on roughly a second faster than his current lap, which would see him shift up a little bit more towards the midfield here. It would be pretty awesome if he could puzzle this together here.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's going to be 1.5 second improvement roughly. That is massive. Only P8 though. A little bit disappointing.
Yeah. Not as high as I thought.
Yeah, me neither. But you can see that the field is kind of spread apart a little bit more as usual. So that is a little bit of a change up as well, right? Normally you see there's a lot of drivers within like 2/10s, and then it makes a lot of difference if you can just get that 2/10s in. But now that the field is less busy, because like the fastest drivers and the slowest drivers, doesn't matter if you're on a server of 10 people or 50, will roughly be the same time, because the skill level in Amigos is just that way, right? Yeah. So therefore, if you are trying to, you know, if you get a bigger field together, you overtake more positions if you get 10 2/10s faster than you normally would. But now Like, if you drive half a second faster, there's a good chance you're only overtaking one person, which just feels weird. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, less competition, but can also be a lot tougher competition at the same time by having fewer people overall in the race.
It's got its upsides and downsides, right? Now,
Yeah.
Tommaso here, where's your teammate here? I haven't seen Sir Vigatti on the server yet, which is a little bit disappointing. Are you guys not racing today? There's a good chance, of course, but that would be a little disappointing. Would have loved to see him go. There's Richard Christie we're aboard with here. Now, the interesting thing is that Richard Christie actually drives for a different team than Jack Christie does, even though they're very much related.
Huh.
So, yeah, there's a bit of rivalry going on within the family. I can imagine that being very fun at Christmas dinner as well, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. Show up wearing different hats, you know, got to sit at the different tables.
It's probably not that bad yet, but... And I say yet on purpose here.
Yet. Yet is funny, we'll have to see.
I think they'll be fine, though. I think that they can manage it. I'm pretty sure it's all just friendly. Obviously, Jack Christie is the one to watch that, as he's by far the youngest, and he's still got the most time to improve here. And by the time that he's probably peaking, then probably time to put Darren and Richard in a retirement home of some sort. At least when it comes to racing. Although, I say that, but there's actually a 70-year-old driver in the Japanese Super GT, which is incredible. Like 70-year-olds.
Oh.
And they've still got the physique to do these kind of races. It's incredible, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. To be doing much of anything at 70 years old is impressive enough as it is, but driving takes a certain, you know...
Not just driving, racing
level of
even.
Racing, I should say. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, very impressive indeed. So maybe they won't be hitting the retirement home anytime soon. They'll have to...
Time will tell. I always love watching these like elderly streamers that you see sometimes playing like Euro Truck and having a blast, right? Always puts a big smile on my face. Well, anyways. You're going to get ready here. Right. Just checking here. No, I wasn't missing anything. I asked if my using my Rensport closed beta key, which is now the game that ESL is actually using as their esports game.
Oh.
If it's well, if it's any good, because it's still technically a closed beta. So you have to sign up for the beta, which I did back in the day when it was first like announced.
Yeah.
But I just got my key like a couple days ago. Haven't come around to trying it yet, although I have heard that it's not necessarily worth it yet. Like people say that it doesn't really excel at anything. Like iRacing's got it, this like like the physics are just amazing, right? When it comes to GT racing, a set of courses the best by far. R Factor has some amazing physics as well, but has less variety than iRacing. They've all got their upsides and downsides, but for what I've seen from Rensport is that just like it's just average at everything. It doesn't really excel at anything.
Right.
I mean, the force feedback isn't perfect either way. No, I'm lucky to have like a very common wheel, so I think I'll manage. But I can also imagine if you got like end game gear that not a lot of people are using, and that's also gonna be like massive downside for you as well. So
yeah, it's not going to be easily optimized for your experiences, unfortunately.
Because I don't know if that makes a difference actually. Like I don't know how much you need to actually do to get your game working on. I mean, you'll get it working on all the wheels. You're not sure how it will work with like the feedback, because obviously the better the feedback is, the more you'll feel connected with the car. So that's obviously going to play a big difference. I don't know if you do any sim racing yourself, but
not recently. I used to back in the day, and I'm trying to get back into it as we look to get some rigs up in my area. So.
I mean, I've got a rig at home, but I just don't get around to using it that much because I'm just busy all the time, which absolutely sucks.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? So so into the scene and all that, and it's like, well, no time to actually do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of also my fault because I am a massive workaholic, and I know this. But for me, it's kind of painful realizing that, you know, I do my thing and I just sometimes forget that I also need free time. I'm very bad at this. I'll see an offer that I think is interesting, and I'll go like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Clive Bixby on a massive improvement map that's gonna put him all the way to P3. Very nicely done by Clive Bixby. Immediately celebrates by sending the car into a sideways push here. Very nicely done by him to put the car up in P2. Whereas the Marcos finished P3. And we've got a car standing still here as well. And that's Pritchett just disconnecting now. Or just resetting to the pits rather. I'm hoping that we don't get more disconnects. So that will make the race rather boring, to be honest.
Yeah.
Aaron Sparks here. Shaves a little bit off the time in the end. Although it's not going to be good enough to improve to a massive amount here, as the last drivers are now just coming in here as well here. So Elliot Watts has just joined in. They have missed qualifying, but they are going to be starting the race. But Elliot Watts is one of the faster drivers out there, so I wouldn't be surprised if by lap 5 he's already somewhere near the front anyways. But time will tell, I suppose. Here we're going to be waiting for the race to start in just a moment here. So, well, time will tell as to how it goes, of course, here.
It'll be very interesting to see. I'm curious to see Watts drive if you're that sort of confident in his driving ability. There should be fun times.
I mean, I'm not just confident. I just know it will be. The thing is with him, and just I like not even him like as a person, just him and the people around him as well that he's like racing with. They're very competitive people, and they're good as well. So Elliot Watts was a driver that was, I want to say, near the top 3 for basically the entire season, if it wasn't for outside circumstances as well. Like, there's one race, I believe, where he's got like 2 minutes of damage, which is basically race over at that point.
Yeah.
Because 2 minutes is a lot of time to make up. But generally speaking, even with like success penalties and such implied, he is still so competitive out there. So he's definitely one to watch, in my opinion here. Time will tell. Things could be different every race. Yeah. Now I quickly gotta pull this screen up as well, because I've just realized that. Okay, no, great. No, I'm an idiot, and I apologize for being an idiot. I'm not gonna show you what I did, but no.
We'll just sit and wonder.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's always so awkward in these kind of moments where you just have to sit there. Not a lot of things to talk about for now. But yeah.
Field looking more or less, I think, the way it did last week. I can't find too much of an outlier just off the top.
I mean, neither. Now, I do think that David Hill's done a massive job at keeping them towards the front at Bathurst here, but this time he seems to be struggling a little bit more. What the reason for that is, well, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, it does make a difference. Last time we obviously had that big crash as well with the Russian squad. They're not on the server this time around, so...
right.
Yeah, I'm unsure what actually happened there penalty-wise in the end. I didn't look at it, unfortunately. But I will, so be it, I suppose. Now, by the way, one thing you're going to have to keep in mind as well, the camera controls that you see here, these are not the only camera controls that you've got. Because believe it or not, there's more. If you, for example, click 1, it will put you inside the car, and if you've got like 2, 3... Like 2 is spotlight cam, I'm pretty sure, but 3 is like a drivable chase cam, which you could use if you're a psychopath, or if you're using a controller, I suppose.
Well, maybe our friend Samuel Mbugua is driving that way, I wonder.
I don't know, actually. Because, like, the thing is, for me, I don't really care if I'm in or outside the car if I'm playing, like, a game on a controller, right? But when it comes to, like, driving with a wheel, it just feels so weird and disconnected if you're driving in third person with a wheel.
Oh, I don't think there's any way. That just seems... It just seems unhinged. Because no one's ever driven like that in a car.
I mean,
just
is that a challenge?
yeah, absolutely. Driving like one of the Mad Max cars where you're sitting on the back of the car with a bunch of
I mean, Mr. Bean
weird
did it
wires
in
hanging.
some way. It wasn't too far off.
That's true. That's true, actually. I didn't think about that.
Although, obviously, movies aren't real here. Always, but still. Right, just 3.5 minutes until we get going here. Shouldn't be too long then. Dylan van der Wegen is our newest addition to the grid here. The Belgian squad has signed up for this event just to try it out. And we'll see how that goes, I suppose. So once again, there's one mandatory pit stop where you need to driver swap as well as refuel with a minimum of 1 liter as always here. Now, changing tires is wise here. Not enforced, but you could do it, and I think you should do it. Maybe somebody will be stubborn enough to not do it. You never know. There's always some people out there who are crazy with it. By the way, did you watch the Imola GP, Formula 1?
I didn't get the chance to catch it, unfortunately. Did you?
I'm not going to spoiler things, but one thing that I do want to point out, which is just so incredible, right? Max Verstappen is, he loves racing, and everybody knows that he loves racing, right? Probably more than everybody else. So he decided to not only race in the Imola GP, he also decided that he was going to race in the iRacing 24 Hours of the Nordschleife.
Oh, really?
Yeah, did both in one weekend. And
oh, man.
I'm pretty, I went to check the stream a couple times, and he was driving, on Saturday evening after qualifying. And then he also was racing at Sunday morning, a couple hours before the race.
Oh, my God. That's a level of dedication that I don't think I've ever had in my life. So I really do respect.
If only we did, then we wouldn't be sitting here. Then we would be probably flying across the world, going to some business meeting now.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. The the best of what they do have to do it 24 hours, and racing does facilitate that well. They do love their 24-hour racing.
I do think the endurance races are the thing is they've got their ups and downs, obviously. For me, endurance is great because it really pushes everybody to the limit, because not only do you have to think about racing and staying ahead, you have to think about your tires, your fuel, you got to think about driver stints, you got to think about things way more deeply than you do in any other racing series, right? There's so much extra factors you have to take into account. It's gonna get cold at night, might rain during the night,
right?
You're gonna see less in the dark, etc. But the downside is as well, people are more careful. And it makes sense that they're more careful. But that does also kind of, get in the way of hard racing sometimes. Right?
Yeah.
Why would you take a massive risk if that means you're going to lose 23 hours of your progress if you crash? Right? And that makes sense as well. Obviously, you do go for overtakes, but you just got to be a little bit more careful. And if it was like a 15-minute sprint where you kind of have to take over a position quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose I sort of understand the reasoning behind it, but in some ways you miss out on what you sometimes come to racing for, which is those tough battles and close battles in the nitty-gritty of it all. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now we're going to start with our warm-up lap here, as we usually do. Everybody drives across, then we're going to do our rolling start procedure as per usual. Now, as you can imagine, I am pretty tired after a couple hours of IRL motorsport broadcasting here, so I'm going to ask you to do the majority of the play-by-play commentary here, so I can relax my throat a little bit here, because I do need to speak a lot tomorrow as well, so we'll see how that goes, I suppose. Here we are on the way, and once again, we are going to be running into the dark, I think, so it's going to be fun to watch that time go through as well.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. It certainly changed up the narrative of the race last time around. Once the dark hit, things got a little different.
Spicy.
Yeah, spicy's a good word for it. So, a couple of crashes, a couple of close misses. There's a couple from the Russian team that we won't be seeing, of course, today, but we will have, I'm sure, some excitement going on. regardless of who it is.
Speaking of spicy, I basically didn't have time to cook, so I decided to get something, you know, out of the freezer that we had laying around that I could just warm up so I could eat quickly. As soon as I came late, and then I immediately got to do my stream prep as well. So I decided that it might be a good idea to just, you know, quickly grab something so I could get to it earlier. So I might have like a couple minutes to relax as well. I ended up having 0 minutes to relax, but so be it.
Yep.
The thing is though, I saw like a container with pasta bolognese, right? Pretty simple sauce. Turns out that was something my dad made, but what he forgot to tell me when I grabbed it and warmed it up, that he put a habanero into it.
Ah.
And I wasn't ready for that, as you can imagine, because that's not the first thing you imagine when you've got bolognese here, and I'm pretty sure that all the Italians in the chat are also now going to get mad. Why would you do such a thing? Well, I don't know. Ask my dad, I suppose. But that was, that definitely got me fired up a little bit more.
Yeah, wakes you up, right? I'm sure it helps to heighten the senses.
The only thing it actually did is, well, the only thing that actually did is, make everything come out of my body here. Because, like, my cold is just gone now, right? Because spices work really well against the cold. So my cold's just completely gone. My blocked nose isn't blocked anymore. Which is great, but even then, I would rather just do it a bit less, Like, if you would have told me... if you would have told me, it would have been fine. I could probably handle a habanero. I ended up eating it anyways. It's just that, when you're not ready for it, that's where it really hits you.
Yeah, the surprise spice is always... it's always the worst killer. The expected spice, you can live with.
All right,
it's
that's
the
surprise
surprise.
spice. So we are going to get into the race here, as the first drivers are going to cross the line, and we are underway for a 2.4-hour event here at Misano. Seeing who makes it through the first corner. Looks like everybody's kind of does for now, and there's the touch towards the front. As I say that, one driver just now going slowly, and then unfortunately some drivers also getting squeezed towards the end. So it's once again chaotic at the start. No surprises there. But do you think everybody's kind of made it through without significant damage at least?
Yeah, everyone looks to be doing okay so far. Obviously, positioning changed up a little bit, as allowed Clive Bixby the chance to jump out just ahead. But the field maintains tight cohesion here, so we'll have to watch and see how Michael Thomas, our winner from last week, deals with this one now. He's going to have to find a way to make up some ground after an early touch there. Sent things into a bit of chaos, but back and he looks as good as ever.
Most definitely. Now the thing also that's gonna get me real interested here is just looking how the drivers are gonna be acting here in the long run. Are they going aggressive now first and just calming down a little bit more? Are they gonna keep pushing all the way? You've got a long race ahead of you, and I can imagine that tiredness playing into factor a little bit later as well. Now, Tommaso Bocci has asked me to, repeat the story here. As he's Italian, he would love to know what I did to massacre my pasta. So I'm gonna tell you one more time here. So I came home from a long day at work, decided to warm something up from the freezer, and we had pasta bolognese laying around, like the sauce, and I was just like, fine, I'll warm that up and I'll cook some pasta and then call it a day, right? Well, that was fine. Issue is, however, that he put a habanero into it and he didn't tell me. So the sauce was really spicy, and obviously a habanero doesn't really belong in a bolognese either way. So that was, not what I was expecting at least, and that kind of caught me by surprise. So that's that story. And then what have we got here as well? Tommaso Bocci. Why you're not racing was asked by Jack Christina. Said both both and I felt unwell last week, and me and Gianluca wanted a week of rest here. So we're taking a little bit of a rest to get racing on a little bit later, which is valid, to be honest.
Never hurts to take a little bit of a a casual weekend, as it were, or casual Monday.
And I didn't put it in, by the way. I didn't put anything into the... I mean, the sauce was just ready and pre-made for me. But I didn't put it in. My dad put it in. And that's what caught me by surprise so much. Because when I make bolognese, you know, I try to go as traditional as possible. But then my dad most definitely didn't. Which was scary.
Yeah, I'll give it to the Italians. They have a point. You should do it the traditional way. I find it always turns out better. And you never get surprised by a habanero that way.
That's also true. Yeah, no, it was a little bit scarier. Now, obviously, spaghetti bolognese is always good on its own, but yeah, even then a little bit scary. I know, what's the traditional way? I have an Italian cookbook laying around. That's not by Jamie Oliver, so therefore it's good. No, I am actually not entirely sure what I got it from. If I'm not mistaken, because I spent quite a lot of time making bolognese. I should do it right, low and slow kind of style. You gotta let the sauce go for a little bit more. But I make it with carrot and celery, obviously, as you should, and red wine. I'm not sure if red wine is traditional. I believe it is. But yeah. I mean, obviously, I think spaghetti is technically the wrong one as well. Because I'm pretty sure you're supposed to use tagliatelle. Because spaghetti is too thin. And the sauce and the pasta need to, like, be correct, right? Like, obviously, when you have a thinner sauce, you take different things than if you have a bigger, chunky sauce. But everybody here eats spaghetti. If I had tagliatelle around, I probably would have used that. But I'm not going to the store when they're closed already and I came off a long... 10-hour plus day of work. Normally, I try to use tagliatelle if I can, but there's like a reason for it. So, for example, like pasta and shapes and sauces is like a very important thing as well, right? Timing, like, getting the right thing with the, it's just, I don't know how to explain this, but it's like such an important thing, and it really makes or breaks your dish. You don't expect it because you think pasta is pasta. Well, you're wrong. It's very important.
The surface area and the sizing. And whether there's an inside tube or, where the sauce can hide.
Yeah, exactly.
How much, leverage it has to move around the pasta, how much sauce you're getting per bite. It's a lot of factors that have to be considered when you're choosing the right pasta.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, if you've got, for example, like a Alfredo or whatever, right? I'm pretty sure you guys got something else in Italy, but yeah, we're barbarians.
Yeah.
You do that with, like, fettuccine or linguine or whatever. And when you have, like, pomodoro-based sauce, you tend to... I think you use the same for that as well, actually. I'm trying to find, like, an example where you use something else. Maybe arrabbiata, that you'll take, like, penne with that, I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
Alfredo. See, that's the thing. We call things differently because we're barbarians. And, like, for every single dish in the world, we copy the names... just not for Italian ones, and it's ridiculous. I don't know why we don't. Why is it just like not wanting to admit that it's not yours? Is that why English? Is that why? Might be.
I mean, yeah, I would say so. Well, I can only speak for North America here, but North Americans love to, claim things as their own, and we made it New York pizza and this and that. And sure, maybe they made like a slight adjustment, but at the end of the day, it's still the invention of others, and simply changed or maybe bastardized depending on your opinion on certain things.
I think the official name for it is like ragu alla bolognese or something. It's like, and it probably comes from Bologna, like the city, but that's as much as my guess. Yeah. Or tagliatelle al ragu is something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't know why we couldn't just stick with the Italian names. Probably because nobody can pronounce them. Maybe that's why, actually.
That's a good point, yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, but I get very triggered if I hear something if somebody says something in like a very weird way. For example, if somebody mispronounces something, Like you don't get offended, but it's kind of like that, right?
Just tickles something in the back of your head, and you're like,
Yeah.
hmm.
But I don't know why we couldn't just take the same names, because now if we go to Italy, I've got no clue what I'm ordering, because we all call them something else. If I say pasta alfredo, they probably won't know what that is, because they probably call it something else there. I'm just not sure what they call it, right?
I'm trying to think of the name because I remember reading about it recently, actually.
Isn't it like something burro, like butter or something? Burro? Isn't it something like butter? I'm pretty sure it's like
Burro,
fettuccine with like butter and parmesan, right?
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
It's probably just whatever the Italian word for butter is then, I suppose. But I don't know why we couldn't do this in the first place. Would have been so much easier to just like stick with the names.
Yeah, and I mean, people would have learned how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, made up their own pronunciation.
Yeah, true. But I'd rather, like, that's the thing as well. It's such a... I don't know if this is such a cultural thing to Western and Northern Europe, but for example, if somebody speaks my language or like tries to speak my language, we're like, let's just speak English instead.
Yes, yep. Even here in Canada, we have Quebec, which speaks French, of course.
Yeah, how is that like? I mean, it's so weird to hear like somebody who's fluent in English but has French as their native language, because the French just refuse to speak English straight up. Most of them, at least.
Well, the Quebecois here are like you described, where most of the time, if you go in the major locations, otherwise they don't speak English at all. But in the big cities, Montreal, etc., if you try and speak French to them, they just typically will just look at you funny and just speak English. But outside of that, yeah, very, very protective of the language, very proud French, and it's quite the battle in Canadian history to protect the French language.
Yeah, which is weird because it's such an like I don't want to go this pathway, but to me it's such an inferior language because the Dutch has some very creative words that I use on a daily basis that I can't use in French. Therefore it sucks. And their counting is weird. Like, come on, 96 is 4 times 20 plus 10 plus 6. Come on, man.
It's so... Well, I mean... I'm assuming there's no Quebecois people watching, so I'm just going to say that it's such a strange little thing they have going on there. 40 times 2 plus 9 or whatever is really funny, though. I just don't see the efficiency for using it for everyday conversation.
I mean, when do you use 96 in an everyday conversation? Like almost ever.
You're not wrong.
Oh.
You're not wrong.
So maybe the French were right all along. I hate to admit it.
That no one ever likes to admit that one, but sometimes I guess you have to.
Yeah. So between the gaps now, we've got Oliver Dewey here in P8. Currently chasing the big Mustang of David Hill. Trying to get around this. It's already getting a little bit darker out there.
A lot faster than last time, if I recall.
Yeah, I mean...
Mostly being a night race here.
Definitely. But it's also a lot of, like, you know... It's just going to get darker and darker out there. And depending on the lighting facilities on the track, it could vary a lot on how much you could see. Right? Because I'm pretty sure, for example, the Nürburgring is just basically all darkness. Whereas some modern tracks are just basically lit up everywhere. So it doesn't really get in your way. Now, we've got a couple battles going on there. We are currently aboard with the David Hill versus Oliver Dewey battle here. And then behind us, we've got Van der Wegen and Aaron Sparks. And towards the front, we've got Clive Bixby as well as Mr. Michael Thomas, who's currently fighting hard to reclaim the first position.
Yeah, Michael Thomas not giving up on this battle at all. He was quite dominant last week, probably looking to maintain that dominance here, but Clive Bixby taking advantage of the early kerfuffle in the first couple minutes of the race, got himself into first, and he is looking to maintain, doing a good job thus far as well. So Michael Thomas going to have to turn on the afterburners to try and get himself up and into that first position. And if he does, they have a fairly healthy gap until their next competition. So it truly is Bixby versus Thomas here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a battle that could be going on for ages here. I mean, you know these drivers, right? They're all on top of it. Now, the fastest laps are currently being set by Michael Thomas, as he's currently 1/10 quicker a lap. So it's not too big of a problem yet. Especially now, he's kind of gone off the throttle a little bit here. Michael Thomas is still very stable in the second position. However, he does find himself now a little bit further behind than he would perhaps like to be.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep our eyes out and see if they are able to fight it out here on the track a little bit later on. Oliver Dewey going to meanwhile hasn't really been able to set up an attack immediately. However, he is slowly but surely just lining up, at least ensuring that David Hill doesn't get too far away here. Now, I know him as a very rapid driver. That goes for both Oliver Dewey and David Hill. But they are kind of a little bit further back than they might expect him to. Especially David Hill is a name that you expect to be doing good. I mean, he won the championship last season around, which is achievements in its own, I guess. So, yeah, I can only see it go upwards for him. But obviously, usually in this trusty McLaren, this time in the Mustang. And I can imagine those cars behave very differently.
Yeah, you've got to think when you get into any massive swings of a position like this, might have something to do with that relatively new Ford Mustang. And the only one on the track today as well. Smaller field means, I suppose, fewer people willing to experiment, perhaps. And mostly with the McLarens here.
A small mistake there by David Hill. Couldn't get on the throttle as much as he would have liked to. Now, luckily, he still's got enough distance. Oliver Duke is just waiting for an opportunity to strike. And now he knows that he doesn't need to force this at all, right? You could play around with the pit stops here. You could play around with just poking the bear, seeing if you force him to make a mistake here. But you're in no hurry as well. I mean, there's still 2 hours and 8 minutes remaining here of the race. So what I will be doing here is focusing on my fuel, focusing on my tires, ensuring I can last the entire stint as well, and just see if maybe towards the end there's a little bit of energy left to fight. That's for now. I think he's kind of comfortable where he is. Not really interested in taking over a position for now. Whereas Aaron Sparks has just made his way through here. Now leaving Dylan van der Wegen behind him at least. Here's Aaron Sparks fighting for his life here. Has committed to the Aston for this season, but has still been contemplating what he's going to be using the next season. Now, I've kind of asked him to choose something unique, and I think he's settled for a car that we didn't have on the grid last season, which is always going to be a pleasant surprise, I suppose.
Not bad to see in, again, one of our two more uncommon cars fighting for a spot here. So seems like a little spice provides a little bit of a little bit more action, as it were, than if you're driving just the stock standard, that which everyone else is driving.
I mean, right now it's a lot of McLarens. Obviously, LC McLarens are kind of the fastest here. Now, with the way the current meta is, there's two cars that really exceed now, especially with the BMW kind of falling behind now on the meta, thanks to the BOP that has been changed around. So the Ferrari 296, the car we're going to be watching, that's going to be one that we're going to be seeing a lot next season. And then we've got the McLaren, which has been a staple for about a year now. This is what it feels like. So these cars we're going to be seeing a lot there. The Aston is a little bit less common, but still a viable option. But next time we've got Aaron Sparks driving in the Honda NSX, which is a car that you probably haven't seen in this game yet, actually, now that I think of it.
I have not.
Well, you should. Sounds amazing. Feels amazing. I got to see one IRL today. It's a stunning car.
Oh.
Yeah, I was at... I mean, the thing is, I can say the event name, but I'm pretty sure it's like really offensive in American English. We call it Japfest, which is... Isn't that like a really bad word to call like a Japanese person?
Yeah, it's not really. It's frowned upon. We'll put it that way.
Okay, well, see, here we just use it in a normal way. I guess it's just short for Japanese Fest or something, I assume. Although we don't really have that problem here. I'm pretty sure in the British English that we speak and in Dutch, not really a problem.
No, different context, so.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my American friends wonder, like, wait, you went to what? And I guess that makes sense as well. However. But yeah, it's a great event. I got to be there, got to be on the mic for 2 days, which was spectacular. Although it has left me quite tired as well, of course. Now, I do only have a 2.4-hour event ahead of me, so it's not too bad. Although obviously we're gonna have to do a lot of work anyways. Oh, yeah. I mean, for you this is also a good opportunity to kind of get in there with the play-by-play, I suppose. And,
of course, yeah.
We'll see how that goes, of course, because you're obviously trying to get some more experience in. So I don't want to be the only one to be talking the entire way. So yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll wait for some exciting action to take place here. But in the interim, we'll see what else we can find and get up to. I do have a feeling it'll take us a little bit before things start to kick up a little bit, as most of the drivers, I think, as you sort of alluded to earlier, probably more in the camp of the endurance side of things at the moment. No reason to go too crazy, no reason to get too far ahead of yourself and risk something by trying a risky, aggressive overtake when you still have 2 hours of racing yet. And I'm specifically looking at Ewig and Hill here as they continue their battle. Ewig still trying to find that vein of attack, not quite able to. And just having to maintain at the moment.
Yeah, it's just waiting, I suppose, for now. Seeing when David Hill makes a mistake, seeing if he's going to pit early, then perhaps try and go for the overcut, or pit earlier and see if your teammate will be able to do the work for you, of course. Here now in the dark, the conditions are obviously a little bit more challenging normally here, as you see less, meaning you have to really know the track well, of course, here. Now, at the moment, there's no real potential for a move just yet here, but guess we'll see if that will pan out differently anytime soon.
Yeah, I do have a feeling it'll take us a little bit before we start seeing any mistakes, but undoubtedly they will start to fall through as drivers, you know, lose just a second of concentration is all it takes. And something can give, although we do have, of course, driver swaps available, so we can keep them fresh whenever they so feel necessary. So we're gonna have to keep an eye on that and wait for some of these teammates to start coming through. And just taking a quick look back at Michael Thomas and Clive Bixby here. Gap sitting around 1 second, kind of hovering there. Less of an aggressive battle at the moment, more of a pace one, as Michael Thomas still maintaining our best lap at the moment. Once again, a small margin, but maintaining it nonetheless. But it's Bixby who has been able to maintain the position.
And that doesn't surprise me, actually. Now, I mean, obviously they're both very quick here. They're kind of doing similar lap times. Last lap, Thomas was a little bit slower, but his peak was a little bit higher. So Clive is a little bit more consistent with the times right now. But in the end, I think it's kind of plus/minus the same. So to see how that one pans out will be interesting here. Now, David Hill was able to see Oliver Dewey crawl a little bit more towards him in his mirrors, but so far hasn't really had to defend actively anymore. There hasn't really been a clear attack for now. It's just chasing him, seeing where they end up going for now here. Now that could obviously change as well. We're a little bit later on here. But what I did notice is that Chris Tedder might be in trouble, as it is DeMarco getting closer and closer to him now, especially now the exit on that corner where Chris Tedder really seemed to struggle to get on the throttle. Now he's got the Italian all over him. It's only a matter of time until he's going to have to do some defensive action.
Yeah, I would say this is our tightest battle right now, as DeMarco playing very aggressive, it looks like, on Tedder's tail. You have to have the feeling that DeMarco might see, or feel like he will soon see, an opening that he can take advantage of. Things are very tight here. It is just about our closest gap of the race at the moment. As just taking a look at Ewig's time, he's just about a tenth of a second farther away. So this is our money match at the time. DeMarco
gave it a look. Yeah, he gave it a look. Obviously, he's always trying to see if there's a gap somewhere. So you have to kind of swerve out of the way, see how much space there is, right? Because it's kind of hard to get the perception right if you're, you know, kind of driving behind him. And you need to go side by side anyways if you want to pass him, right? You can't just go through him.
Yep.
At least most drivers try to get around rather than getting through. I know a couple examples that tend to think about it the other way. Although I do admit that the racing we're seeing here has been exceptionally clean here. I think there's been a handful of contacts max, but nobody spun around, and there hasn't been anybody in the barriers yet. So therefore, I guess the less drivers really helped that case.
Yeah, fairly clean race so far. You have to, you know, well, I suppose you don't have to love that, but it is good for the health of the cars, as it were. So later field, definitely you're going to see a lot more of the open road. I guess beyond that brief early interaction that we had there. And looking like Chris Tedder's finding his throttle a little bit here.
Getting farther away, isn't he?
Yeah, just a little bit by bit. He's being, or looking like he's sort of had a bit of an awakening with DeMarco so close on his tail. Knows he has to keep up if he wants to stay ahead, and he's doing so fairly well.
I mean, this is maybe also a little bit of the wake-up call for Chris Tedder. Right now he knows that he has to try and, well, at least stay on a similar, you know, kind of time difference. He doesn't necessarily need to drive away from him just yet. However, obviously he should keep up the pace. And I feel like he's getting a little bit more comfortable in his car right now. The lap time last time around was not too great here. That was obviously where we saw him make the mistake, and that's where we saw that DeMarco got very, very close. It's not the cleanest of race we've seen from Chris Tedder so far, but he is hanging on strongly, and so far is doing exactly what he needs to keep him ahead. However, it's definitely also the case of one mistake, and we're going to see him get side by side, and then things might get a little bit dicey here. At the moment, he's doing all right, though.
Yeah. Nothing to be too concerned about if you're Chris Tedder, as long as you can keep up what you've been doing. As Ewig and Hill appear to be doing more or less the same dance. And Bixby Thomas continues to find a bit more of a gap between them, it feels like, to about a 2-second gap now in the positioning. Thomas, of course, still maintaining the best lap, but things are pulling away.
Yep, absolutely. Now, I did see that this is the closest battle we've got right now. Although I did also notice that Oliver Dewey is slowly finding the back of David Hill again. So it's a matter of really seeing This battle is going to take place first. And obviously, this battle's been going on for quite a while. Already getting plenty of action here as the drivers are just so neck and neck at the moment. I think that's going to stay for a little bit longer here as they once again make their way through. Because keep in mind, we've already seen 17 laps and they're had to be separated here. If you look at the minimap right on the right of the screen, you can definitely see that the gaps between some of the drivers have taken a different turn. But as for now, Steller just doing his thing defending. And so far also no clear winner to kind of come out of this yet here. Steller, I did notice, he is pushing it to the absolute limit though.
Yeah, and despite that, DeMarco not losing the thread whatsoever. In fact, feels like he's also found a bit of a rejuvenation here. Coming back quite strong. He wants that third spot.
But he's also in no hurry, right? That's kind of it kind of goes against your core principles of racing, because then you really want to take this position now, right? And that's obviously what you're going to be aiming for. But the thing is, you also know that one mistake, I mean, you're basically out of the race. So don't you have to give in, accept the fact that you're behind, keep looking for that mistake, but if it's not coming, just wait it out and think of another way to overtake. Because there's plenty of options here, right? You could see if the weather changes, you could do a driver swap, do your mandatory pit stop a little bit earlier, and then just focus on driving in clean air to make your way by. Or we'll see that Chris Tedder then immediately follows into the pit as well, because this is obviously the direct battle we're currently watching here. The rest of the drivers not really testing as for now here, as David Hill is successfully driving away from Oliver Dewick now. So that does mean that this is now the only battle we've got on track going on there. They are, well, almost hitting each other here, just absolutely on the limit, just so close to each other, which also just shows how great the trust is between the drivers, right? You don't really notice this, obviously, and even though it's just a video game, at least, well, that depends who you ask, I suppose, but the thing that you can always say about it is that the drivers here have exceptional trust in each other. Otherwise, you would not be driving this close to each other.
Yeah, opens up a lot of possibilities for danger, but DeMarco has been consistently in that same position with Tedder almost this entire battle, so they're doing a great little dance here, working in tandem, competing, of course, at the same time, but very fun battle to watch. DeMarco is just...
He's preparing something. You can tell by the lines he's taking. He wants it badly. And he was already kind of looking over. He already saw that if Tedder were not to defend in that scenario that we saw earlier, like half a lap ago, if he would not have actively defended there would have been a chance to go side by side. But obviously, Tedder is doing everything he can to try and avoid getting into that scenario in the first place here. Because if you could just stay ahead, you never really have to fight side by side anyways. So for DeMarco, it's just a matter of just keep knocking on that door. Eventually, somebody will open it. And whether that's now or in an hour, it doesn't really matter. As long as you get by before the finish is actually there, I suppose. So as for now, it's just seeing if there's anything that he can do to get by here. Copy the lines of Chris or try your own way to try and get by here. The gaps that we are seeing here are still very minimal. 0.2 of a second between them. And that basically hasn't changed for, well, I want to say the half of the race, but it's probably longer by now.
Yeah, it's been quite a while that we've been sitting with these two, or not sitting with them when they've continued to battle nonetheless, as this has been the story of the night. She kind of said the Hill-Ewick gap is up to about 1.3 seconds now, so David Hill managed to fight him off. Bixby fighting off Thomas. They're at 1.6 seconds difference in between them, so it's DeMarco who's been untenable this race. Absolutely insatiable. And we'll have to see if it pays off for him or not, but you're right. He does have the chance. And he will.
The next corner is a right-hander here, so he should have the advantage coming in. Therefore, I think he's just made his way past here. However, Chris Taylor's not very keen on, you know, giving up immediately. Now he's going to just be on the outside, and there's going to be very little that he can do. And he actually overshoots it a little bit as well. And that will cause him to brake a little bit harder afterwards. And therefore, I think he's just going to have to seize that battle for now.
And there you have it. DeMarco finding his way through. Of course, he will have Tedder angry and motivated, not just right behind him. Unless he can get rid of him, he'll have to contend with him for most likely quite a long time, if I had to guess.
Yeah, most definitely. The thing is, though, I know Chris is a guy that is very patient and not necessarily a hothead when it comes to driving the car. Although I do also have to say that like the only times I've really seen Chris get mad if there's like something that's out of his control, like he gets rammed off for no apparent reason. But so far, I think he's honestly fine with things going that way. Obviously, he's going to be trying to get that position back, but it was a fair and square overtake. It was a very entertaining battle for the both of them. This is a great learning experience as well. But therefore, sure, you're frustrated that you lose the position, but you're just going to get your head off it and focus on crawling back here. There's no reason to have it kind of roam around in your head for even longer, because you're living in the moment of now. You can't really change what's happened in the past at all. So, yeah, Cristeta now focusing on getting, well, up to pace again and seeing if he can get closer. As we just see that Oliver Jewick is getting a tiny bit closer to David Hill as well.
Oh yeah, Oliver Jewick picking things up once again. And you're quite right about the mental battle. That's the hardest one, if you ask me. So easy to find yourself tilting or on tilt, as it were, in these long endurance races especially. You have to watch out for it because it can be mentally tiring, so you have to make sure you keep your head in it at all times.
Yeah, and the thing is that people usually underestimate as well, depending on how your duo is. And obviously it also depends on the kind of event. But for example, what you see is that in a set of course competition, when you're doing these kind of drive swap events, that the other driver is usually in the call with them. So like that could be a good thing, right? Because it can get you additional information. For example, you could see that you're winning time in a certain sector, or you know, his tires are getting a little bit worse or something along those lines here. You're just able to get a little bit more information, but how much information is too much information, right? You don't want to be the one to just keep inventing all the time. Because obviously, in the end, you are going to have to win that battle on track, at least for now. Because in these kind of 2.4 hour events, there is a significant difference in tactical approaches that you can have, but it's still very limited because you have to get that swap in, right? For example. But when you have got like a 24-hour race, well, it matters quite a bit if you stop every 1 hour or every 1 hour and 15 minutes. Because that's going to be a couple pit stops that you save towards the end, right? It's going to be 4 pit stops.
Yep.
And that could be a key difference. And can you make that up while driving fast? Well, obviously on the fresher tires, you're going to do a lot better as well, but it's not always necessarily worth it. Everybody's going to have to commit at some point. You can't expect the tires to last forever. And I assume that once the stint's over, you're going to see that everybody's going to swap over tires, swap driver and refuel, get it all done in one go. And then just keep focusing on in the distance. Well, that's what we saw Aaron Sparks do. And Samuel Bugua, he insisted that Aaron Sparks stayed out for the beginning, so that they didn't have to come in again, which did then lead them the advantage that way, because some people had to pit twice, and that's going to obviously add on to your timer. Depending on the track, that could be up to a minute.
Oh, right, because they swapped drivers but didn't swap tires, and they had to pit again to swap tires but not drivers.
Not even. It's kind of like, obviously there's a maximum driving time per stint, and that's what I'm kind of aiming towards here as well. The maximum amount of time that you can drive is different per event. Sometimes there is none, but there is one for this event. And basically what that means that if you pit very early or very late, you have to come another go, because otherwise you're going to be driving more than you're allowed to in your stint. And that is a little bit tough, of course, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a logistical battle as much as anything, right? You have to maintain your mental game, as we were talking about, but also to the point where it doesn't impact your, well, like I said, logistical game, your pit stops and your actual car and all these other considerations that you have to make that in probably these shorter races you never have to think about. So
Yeah, most
a lot
definitely.
that can go into it.
And people usually underestimate this side of racing as well. And obviously it depends on the racing game you play. It depends on so many factors in. But a lot of people think that racing is just about being the fastest on the track, where in reality, there's a lot that goes into this, right? You've got countless hours of practice that you're putting in. You've got different setups, strategies, and the tactical aspect of racing is, in my opinion, immensely overlooked, especially in these kind of games, right? You'll see it during for a Formula 1 broadcast where you'll see that some drivers, you know, immediately make decisions when there's a yellow flag coming in or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But in this game, it's a little bit more subtle, to the point where it might not always get noticed, because there's very little information that we can go off. I mean, there's only one way for me to tell what what tires somebody's on. Let's just swap back to the basic overview, the one you're watching right now, and then you'll see dry one, which means that this is his first set of dry tires that he's using. But otherwise, I've got no information.
Yeah.
And this is just something that you will understand with experience as well, of course. Like, I can already tell that your understanding of the game is improving in such a way. And it's just a matter of getting familiar with all the technicalities that there are, right? Just the game-specific gimmicks, the setup of the league in itself, that kind of stuff, right? Which is a great sign as well, because it means you understand racing to the core, at least. And it's just a matter of, you know, getting that stuff up to date, which is, I guess, something that's going to happen from time to time, right? You're just going to be learning new things about the game. And then, like, you don't even need to worry about it, because those very specific gimmicks, like, for example, you've got your gimmick where if somebody is standing on, like, the grid, right, just waiting for the race to start, if their back wheels are up into the air, it means they're changing their setup, right? It doesn't make any sense IRL, but it's a gimmick unique to Assetto Corsa Competizione that gives me information, so I know what's going on. I can see, hey, this driver's changing their setup. But to the outside mind, that makes zero sense, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know that, as I accidentally tapped into the game, apologies. If you don't know that, a game-specific thing, then how are you gonna just adapt to that, right? At all.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the tough part about a lot of, not even racing games, I guess, but just kind of games in general and esports in general, is the specificities that it may not be laid out, right, in plain detail. It's not going to show you that in the tutorial, so you have to figure it out here as, looking like Ewig. Oh, it's just in the pit, pardon me.
Yeah, they're in the pit. You can tell as well, like, on the screen, like on the main screen, you can see there's a P next to the name. Means it's into the pits. You can also see it in your race control. So, yeah. The thing is, it will only show up once they're kind of driving into the official... I think they're only showing it once they're in, like, this driving slow zone. Right. Which is frustrating as well, because normally, if the race control would be working properly, this on the left, it would only show yellow if somebody was driving slower than they would usually. But then it's most of the time, in reality, it was just them slowing down to get into the pits. And you'd swap over thinking, oh, he spun out, he's crashed, he's made a mistake, whatever it might be. And then it turns out that it's the opposite. It's just him getting slower so that he doesn't speed in the pits, so he gets a drive-through penalty.
Right. So in the end, it's sort of A bit of a misnomer, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it usually goes here. Now, obviously, we've yet to tell you guys as well about the 2.4 hour SRO Esports Community Challenge that we are done here. It's pretty simple. That is the event that we've been practicing for. And basically what happens is the winning team will be allowed to represent Amigos Racing League in the SRO Esports Community event, which is probably the biggest SRO Corsa event, or perhaps in the year even. There's even a chance to make your way through and then make your way into a LAN finals, which is in London as well. So that would be pretty interesting to see who's going to represent us in that event. And if we somehow manage to make it to London, that would be absolutely massive, I think.
LAN finals in London sounds like a dream come true, honestly. In-person esports events are things that cannot be beat, if you ask me. So the chance to compete for that is pretty huge.
I mean, I've got all the POVs you could have. I've been there as a player. I've been there as a, on-site talent. I've been there as a spectator. And no matter what you do, it's always a, pleasure. It's always just so much stuff to see and do. My favorite will still always be IEM Cologne. 22,000 nerds in an ice hockey arena in probably one of the most beautiful cities Europe has got to offer. What more could you ask for, right?
Cologne, eh? You big Cologne fan?
Yeah, absolutely. A beautiful city. The cathedral is amazing. It's really probably one of the most impressive things built ever, in my opinion. I don't know if you know what it looks like. It's
stunning.
Yeah.
The two towers kind of thing.
I mean, I honestly, I don't remember. That's the thing. I know what it looks like. But those kind of details I can never remember, to be honest. It's two big towers, yeah, of course, but that's isn't that just generally how Gothic cathedrals are built in general? I mean, I don't know much about.
I suppose that's true, actually, yeah.
I think that's just a thing that they've all got right. But the Cologne one to me just stands out because, first of all, it's in an amazing location, right? Just around the water. The center of the city, you can't miss it. But then also the fact it's existed for so long and just is still doing its thing. Right? They've completed it in what I believe was I think they started it in the 1100s. It wasn't finished until the 19th century.
Okay.
Due to circumstances and such.
Yeah.
But just amazing to see that people in the 1100s were able to already build such impressive structures. It's something that will always blow my mind. Yeah,
it's such an interesting topic. There's a good book about it actually too. I don't know if you've read it.
Probably not.
Ken Follett, called "Pillars of the Earth," and it takes place in exactly the period of time you're describing, in which it follows an architect tasked with building a massive cathedral. And sort of, it's a fiction novel, but it sort of follows the process that they went through, and it's an amazing story.
I'm gonna read that one. That sounds really interesting, actually. Now, I don't consider myself to be a huge history nerd in what way, although I can appreciate those kind of things, definitely. And I do often book trips to cities to see these kind of, buildings and learn about history and such. There's a couple of countries and cities that are still on my list. Well, not everything is 100% accessible, but there's a few that I really want to go to just so I could learn more about the city and its heritage, I suppose. But fortunately, I'm a student. I'm on a low budget here. But yeah, so be it, I guess. That's just how it is.
Yeah. For now. Well, we keep working, and eventually we'll get all the trips in the world. Hopefully.
I hope so. That would be amazing. Now, the interesting thing about what's going on right now is that Pitches obviously served this mandatory pit stop now. But where is he going to end up once David Hill's pitting? Because that was the driver that he was chasing for a very long time. Well, he wasn't, but his teammate was.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how that one plans out here. Now, Chris Teller's just given up on regaining P3 for now. So he's going to hop into the pits now. And I think that should also mean that they're going to be all right to, you know, let the other driver finish here. So they're standing still on the pits. It can be a little bit buggy sometimes as well, both on the broadcast side, but also on the in-game side. So I hope we're going to be okay here. It's also Dan Pickles to come in behind him. There you can see them stand together.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris Titter should be getting underway soon again. But yeah, pit stops just take a very long time this game now. But there's Dominic's hopping in. Waiting to see who comes in for Dan Pickles here. It's obviously going to be Jack Christie. He was, well, not necessarily complaining, but he informed me about the lack of pace that Jack Christie had earlier. So now he's into the car. And let's see what he'll be able to do with it, shall we? Hear some more and more drivers coming in now. That's 3 drivers having served their mandatory pit stop. I'm curious to see what the result will be here. As Chris Tellis just told me blue tires. What exactly do you mean by blue tires? Could you please elaborate, Chris? Now that you're in chat anyways.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the field shakes out after all these driver swaps. As we get more information from Chris Tedder on that one.
Yeah, Dylan van der Wegen also coming in here. So the Belgian squad getting them done. As Chris is saying, was beneficial to pit and put them in fresh tires. Nailed the Andrews, warned them out early-ish. All that stuff. I mean, you did fight really hard for the position with the Marco in the end. And obviously, that battling also isn't too good on your tires. But yeah, I'm surprised to see you guys pit in that scenario. But now that you've explained it, makes a lot of sense. Because I was honestly thinking you were going to keep chasing defeated the Marco just a little bit longer now. But reading this makes a lot more sense, I suppose, here. Here we're gone before then. Yeah, alright. So what has actually happened then? Did you like kind of slide around, or was it just more tire wear than you were anticipating, or what's like what's the deal here? I was just trying to hang on as long as possible. Yeah, I mean, on all tires, it's impressive that you stayed ahead of that long, assuming that the Marco doesn't have that issues. As we see the second driver coming in here. And that means we have a race leader change as well, don't we, Alex?
That's it. Michael Thomas now in clear first, as Clive Bixby gonna choose to take his pit stop. So Michael Thomas battling hard for the pole position, but ultimately it will be a pit stop that is going to sort of hand it his way. We'll see if Clive Bixby continues on in his car, or if the battle will shift to Bixby's teammate.
Yeah, just gotta quickly see what that is actually. Now it's Nico Handke.
Handke? Okay.
Yes, Nico Handke, another German driver.
And Handke it is.
Yeah, see, I gotta admit it. I do need to cheat a little bit here. Now, I did make a spreadsheet the other day. Like, it is on the original one that we have, right? It's on the original.
That's what I'm using,
I sent you. Didn't come around to update it this time around. I still gotta get a spotter guide ready as well, of course, which I will do before the start of next season. I might do it for the SRO qualifier as well. As, most of the time, it's drivers that I already know anyways, and I could just reuse that format anyways, and then delete the entries that didn't show up. So I could get started on that as well, I suppose. I was just too aggressive too early. We managed to get up to third, and we just pushed. Didn't fight Michael Thomas. And I'm sure when you get close, or Bixby, it wasn't my fight. Yeah, true. I was just trying my gap was first, back to everybody else. Yeah, but you held on for very long. And I assume that the plan is now that your teammate finishes the race. Dominic should be at least. Makes a lot of sense tactically, although it would be a shame if you have to come in for, let's say, 10 minutes just to get that last swap around. That will cost you a lot of time as well here. But for now, it's just sit back and relax, I suppose, where your teammate does all the works, or stress even more and hoping that he doesn't screw up. That kind of depends on how confident you are. Yep, that's me done. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense tactically as well. So I guess for now it's sitting back and relax, or immediately hopping onto iRacing, knowing you, of course. But it is quite fun though. Like right now, this is the first time that I've actually seen that the garage channels are in use, where there's a couple duos in chat, right, just doing their thing together. I don't really usually see a lot of those channels being used here, as normally they'll be in private calls, but I assume they were all in general chat, just chatting up a little bit before the race and then going off to focus on the road, which makes a lot of sense because it can get chaotic in there. But I do like that the community is kind of together as well on that side, where everybody's just kind of holding on, hanging on, just sticking together, having a lot of fun in the call. And yeah, wouldn't know what you were on about. Yeah, I wouldn't like to admit it anyways either, but I've jumped on the iRenting hype train, and I don't blame you for it. It is a good game. But it is also a shame to kind of see you move away from a little bit more serious ACC. But you're still going to keep doing those races, so can't really ask for more, can I? It's up to you how you spend your free time. I'm not going to be forcing you to play.
Feeling like we have a little battle here between Dudley and Hill.
Well, these two know each other very well. They go back.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they go back all the way. John Dudley is, well, a very key person in the Amigos. He does quite a lot. He does a lot of stewarding stuff, for example.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. David Hill has just been on the server for as long as I can remember, but I'm pretty sure he's been there for very long. He might have been there since the first few seasons. Yeah, from a league side, I'm always going to race. That's at least something that I'm pretty sure we're all happy about. As the David Hill we were just talking about has just come in.
Yeah.
Will allow John Dudley to push through. But now it's up to Chico Laneford to try and see if he'll crawl back the gap.
Do his best as, yeah, the field certainly changed when the pits all started. The Dudley Hill battle was not a continuation, but a new one, and then now it'll be, I suppose, two new teams entirely, probably fighting for that fourth spot. As we'll have to see if Hill can, or Hill's teammate Lentbar can make up some time.
Now,
the field is changing.
Yeah, most definitely, and that makes a lot of sense here as well. I think Aaron Sparks is soon going to be making the move as well, as they now know that they're kind of in a safe place for now. Aaron Sparks is now getting ahead of David Hill, which is, well, most definitely where he doesn't belong, if you take into account that he's still got a pit stop to make as well to make it more fair. So he's going to be losing a lot of time, and that will allow David Hill to come back, or, well, in this case, Chico Lanevar, that being his teammate, of course. So for now he's up a little bit, and Samuel Mbugua could just hop into the car now at any moment for them to get ready. But obviously you don't know, maybe Samuel Mbugua is still at work coming home now, and Aaron Sparks just has to do his own thing as long as he doesn't exceed the maximum drive time, which is also why I think these driver events are so great, right? Because, for example, if I were to, for example, do night shifts, I could do the first bit and then leave off for work, or, you know, if I work till late, I could just let my teammate do the first bit and then head back when, you know, I've actually had the time to kind of recover from work and do my own thing. So in that sense, I think it's a good addition to have sometimes. And it also adds a little bit more tactical depth, of course, here. As we've seen a couple changes that I didn't really point out here. You've got Jamaique de Klerk. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. My French names aren't too good here, but obviously de Klerk being a very Belgian last name, I'm pretty sure that I will be managing that one. Chico Lanevar's in the corner. We've seen Matthias Pritschke hop into the Vivid Racing 296 as well. Then we've got Dominic Gies now placed, Chris Tedder, Nico Handke, obviously instead of Clive Bixby, and then obviously Jack Christie as well, who has teamed up with, was it Dan Pickles? I gotta check. Yeah, it's Dan Pickles.
Dan Pickles, okay. And Nico Handke, important to note, making a strong push to take Dudley out of the fourth position, and will do so with relative ease, I would say.
And that makes a lot of sense as well, because I want you to focus on the pit requirements here, right? Nico Handke's done his pit stop. He is faster or equally as fast. The last thing you want to do in this position is holding him, because you're not only making it more difficult for him, you're also making it more difficult for yourself. He is not a direct threat to where you will end up racing unless something major happens, right?
True
so
enough.
for now, you're just going to be letting him by, knowing that you can maybe copy his lines, you know, use the slipstream to your advantage and kind of work together that way, rather than getting into the way, knowing that eventually you're going to have to pit, which will put you significantly further back anyways. It's just not worth the hassle. It's not worth the extra tire wear. It's not worth it at all to kind of do that. So John Dudley makes a smart move to move over. Obviously, you don't need to move over, but you shouldn't be defending actively, even though you're allowed to. It just doesn't make any sense to do so. So I think he's made the correct call, and now it's just up to John Dudley to kind of focus on his own lap times now in clean air, knowing there's nobody really behind him to push him, knowing there's nobody ahead that he's chasing. For now, just focus on the clean laps, focus on the tire wear, and see if you can make it last towards the end, or at least till when you're coming in, which for John Dudley is supposedly going to be pretty soon.
Right. And then you sort of just want to ride out the last of your driving here and give your teammate the chance to make up the ground that you might not have had at the moment.
Yeah, and then it's also Nico Handke's on fresher tires, so he's going to have more grip than you, because John Dudley has started on these tires and hasn't been able to change them around, obviously, as he hasn't come in yet. And all the drivers are moving over, knowing, well, we'll just let Nico do his thing. But this is also scarier, because he is now pushing up towards Marcione, right? He's pushing up towards DeMarco, Thomas, who are still yet to come in.
Right.
And that seems like a problem now. But then you also have to take in mind, these drivers are soon going to come in, swap over. And then if you compare the tire age, the top three is always going to be on fresher tires than Nico Handke, because he's already done a couple laps when the other drivers didn't come in yet.
Right. So by pushing this far this fast, he's sort of maybe putting himself at a later disadvantage.
I mean, not necessarily. As everybody has to come in, he now has more of an advantage, but later we'll be able to slight disadvantage again. It's just about choosing the moment where you'll have that upper hand. And for now, Nico Handke is just able to focus on the lap times. This is going to be great for his tire wear. He can focus on his laps, can focus on the lap times. Nobody ahead of behind to stop him in any way, shape, or form. Whereas the rest might still be worrying, like, hey, when can I come in? Because obviously you're on a timer, because your tires are going to be gone. You're going to have to do your driver swap and ensure that you don't exceed the maximum time. But you also have to keep in mind that if you pit now, you might be ending up in traffic with Nico Handke approaching rapidly. So no matter what you do, you just got to make sure you time it right. But the later you pit, the more of the timer advantage you're going to have towards the end, as your tires will be significantly fresher by then.
Yeah, it's an interesting battle now, as I suppose half the field is fighting the other half, or not fighting the other half, as we look towards those who have pitted and those who have not.
Yeah, we just saw Matthias Pritje move past Aaron Sparks as well. Sparks at this point is on older tires. He's been going for, well, if I'm not mistaken, about an hour now.
Yep.
So, I mean, your tires are fine for an hour. Don't get me wrong. They'll be okay. Sure, you'll notice you're not on the freshest, anymore. But it's not like that's endangering your lap times in any way. But Matthias Pritje is driving a different race than Aaron Sparks is right now. Aaron Sparks is worried about drivers like Darren Christie and Leclerc, who are all the way back. Whereas Matthias Pritje has already done that pit stop, is probably quicker on the laps than Aaron Sparks. So he's done the right thing by letting him by. I mean, you sure might think, well, that's boring. Yes, it is, but it's a smart decision as well. So Aaron Sparks is still yet to come in, and that's the harsh reality for him. Knowing that they're already kind of towards the back of the field there, with everybody behind him having done the mandatory pit stop already. I can just now focus on driving out the race and not really worry about anything else, whereas Aaron Sparks has still quite a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, the longer you go, I guess the busier you're going to have to be, and your mind has to work a little bit harder finding ideal lap times. And as you say, too, you have this interesting dichotomy that you have to worry about your teammate. Because if your teammate isn't ready or doesn't feel ready to go in yet, then, well, You're going to be driving a lot longer, a lot later into the tires you're on. Because I think we've talked a bit briefly earlier that you don't really want to, you don't want to pit for tires and then pit for your teammate again.
The less the
wrap
better.
all of that into one.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also got to keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily stack here, because the way it works in motorsports is, well, you are just doing fine. I mean, in this game, it obviously depends a little bit on the scenario as well, but you can do tires as well as repairing at the same time. That might be different on rules, but look at Formula 1, look at normal GT3 racing. That's allowed and that's fine. So not only is it just extra time to get back in and out, but you could also do things at the same time, right? Because if you want to, you could do tires, driver swap, refueling, and damage repair all at the same time, and therefore overall costing you less.
Yeah, so the more you can do, the better. But yeah, I sort of have to have a lot of things line up for that to happen, as getting quite a few pit stops here. Sparks, DeMarco, and Marcione all joining the pit together. So once again, you mentioned traffic before, as Dudley as well goes to the pit.
Yeah, so the interesting part now is that DeMarco and his teammate have thought of a plan here, right? They were going to pit just about in time. But the thing is, Marcione did the smart thing, or arguably the smart thing here, to pit behind her. As I think we've seen that. No, we haven't seen that disconnect. It was just the game passing up a little bit here. Antonio Lapilla getting into the car here, as now the thing was just staying in there and ensuring you stay with him through the pit line. You know that you're not gonna last on older tires for very long. Could still be going for a little bit here, although that time is obviously ticking when it comes to doing your pit stops in time as well. But I get the idea of trying to stick behind, and not only needs one driver yet to serve their mandatory pit stop here, and that's Michael Thomas, the driver we are currently aboard with, although he is going to change that now. That means that we have officially finished all the driver swaps for now, assuming that Michael Thomas is going to come in and give away the wheel to somebody else here. And from then on, it's just a matter of focusing on the rest of the race here, or sitting back and relaxing. Obviously, when you are the driver in the second stint, during the first stint, you're alert as well, right? You kind of want to be thinking like, hey, is it smart to pit now? You can do so many calculations so that the driver could just focus on their own thing, right? Now, Chris Vining does end up getting out in first place, although that did reopen the battle now for the first placer, as already Chris Vining makes a small mistake. He's in cold tires here, so if Nico Hunt is able to get by now, he's going to build up a massive advantage. But however, for now, despite Chris Vining having a little bit of understeer into the corner, this is what it's looked like. He has to get it gone soon. Obviously, this is the moment where Chris Vining has to be a little bit careful. But he knows that he could just take the corners in a way. And, well, it's going to make a difference. Cars should all be pitting again. Oh, wait, that's how it is, right? Yeah, this is the mandatory pit stop, but... Wait, all of them? What's the thing with that then? I'm completely out of touch now. I mean, wait, I'm just gonna quickly check as well what the rulebook says. While you entertain the stream for a little bit, I'm gonna see. Oh, it's a 65-minute pit timer. Right, that was the information I was looking for that I was missing the other day. Yeah, so 65-minute pit timer means that everybody's gonna have to come in anyways. So now this was their first max driver stint time. I thought it was a little bit longer, and I thought you would have been fine by doing one stop and then calling it a day. However,
we'll
Chris
have to see another.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see another. As Chris just pointed out to me, there's a maximum of 65 minutes you're allowed to drive, which does also raise a couple questions here. Like for example, how is that going to be towards the end of the race? You're 65 minutes. You need to pit twice. This race is 2 hours and 24 minutes long, and if you divide that by 2, then that's a little bit more than 65 minutes. So therefore, we're just gonna have to come in. And, well, that's going to be interesting to see how that lasts here. And I guess it's time to tell a little bit later on here. Now, I quickly realized that my window isn't open, but I've realized that the temperature in my room has gone up to 27 degrees. I'm quickly going to open the window while you can do the commentating from now on.
Keep an eye on Vining versus Handke, as Vining is managing to make a bit of a gap, but they're in a little bit of other traffic here, so they've got some things to keep an eye on as the battle sort of heats up. It's Christie there just behind them, and they're going to pass it by. So Vining managing to, despite having some colder tires, as we were saying there, keep in the lead here. Handke has a bit more time to warm up his hands and his tires, so he is going to stay aggressive behind Chris Vining. See how early of an opening he can find here. Vining, though, on the straightaways, managing to keep on the accelerator and do quite well at it all the same.
All right,
Handke
back in. What have I missed?
back in. Nothing much here. Handke has just been keeping it pretty close, keeping things tight, but Vining managing to play a nice defensive game as well. So we're just keeping it at the core 4/10 of a second mark at the moment.
All right, sounds just about right here. Now, it did come to my attention just now that there is also a minimum 25-second pit stop here, which could explain why it's a little bit slower. And that already gives you a little bit more leeway as well, as that allows you to kind of run lighter cars with less fuel into them, knowing that, well, you might as well fill up whatever it takes in that time, right? So you can just take less fuel and refuel a little bit more. Normally you see during the regular races that we do that the drivers that, you know, are not going to be doing tires to do what we call a splash and dash, right? 1 liter of fuel to meet the requirements, and that's it.
Right.
But now that you've got that minimum timer anyways, you might as well take more, because that allows you to run a lighter car in the beginning of the race and also in the middle stint, which leads to faster lap times here. There's a good battle we're seeing on there. Sorry to interrupt you there, but Jamaica Leclerc does end up backing out here in the end. So back to Nico Handke versus Vining we are going. But anyways, as you were saying...
no, it goes back to our earlier conversation about the strategy of logistics more than anything else, where you can play the game in a way that you have to find the little advantages in other ways. So we'll have to keep an eye on our drivers there. Also, something interesting is when this second driver swap will happen, we'll have to watch out for that, because I'm very curious, because when everyone had finished their first driver swap, we had about an hour 15-20 left-ish. So there's going to be 65 minutes where they can drive, I suppose, and then they'll have to get into the pit again. So I have a feeling it won't be most people waiting until 10 minutes, though.
No, I mean, the thing is, it's a maximum, right? So it also depends on what you've got going on right in front of you. For example, if, like was pointed out earlier, Jack Christie wasn't feeding it today. What he could do is he could just do a very small stint now, and let his teammate do the rest. Now, obviously, if you were to start, that would have been easier. As for now, you can't really rely on your driver doing, well, 2 hours of racing while you're only doing 50 or 20 minutes perhaps, right? That seems a little bit optimistic, and also got to keep in mind that will also play into account then as the halftime mark goes. But yeah, as I was saying here, that is a problem, because the thing you've got now going on for you, that if you let your driver go for too long, well, that's going to be very tiring. That's also gonna, you know, become a problem later on. So interesting to see how that one will play out towards the end here. But for now, just focusing on the drivers doing their lap times and nobody's really getting in their way anytime soon.
Yeah, I think for the most part we're back in the. Well, maybe one exception here, as I'm keeping an eye on Vining Huntke, but I think for the most part we're in the thick of it. Driver's going to be just paying attention to the track. For the most part, no one is battling it out, other than for the first position. So while these two fight, everyone else going to be optimizing timing, maybe planning out their future moves with their partner, assuming they're in call together somewhere and chatting.
Most of them will be, if not all of them. Now,
Yeah.
for some drivers, and this doesn't go for everybody, this just kind of depends on what people like. But for me, the golden rule is always just go with what your driver likes. Because, for example, I am not very good at multitasking. So I want to be focusing on the race and then having as little information as possible, apart from, you know, the absolute necessities, right? I don't want to be
Right.
hearing what the deltas are every single corner, because that's going to be frustrating on me. I just want to be focusing on my own race. But some drivers are better in focus when they've got that going for them as well. So that really depends on the scenario. So it's not the same for everybody. Not at all.
Yeah, yeah. Some people are gonna thrive under the total silence, right? They're not gonna want the conversation. They're not gonna want the back and forth. But I think I'm in that sort of boat as well. If I were driving this race as opposed to just commentating it, I don't think I would be able to say much at all. Otherwise, I would risk burnout or hitting a wall or something like that, because my brain just can't work the two things at the same time, sort of like you. But other people can laugh and joke and talk and have not a care in the world and still perform at a high level, and that almost helps them focus because it becomes more automatic, becomes more muscle memory and inherent subconscious than anything else, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Now, obviously, it comes to personal preference, and we've got the luxury of sitting behind our desk to do these kind of races, right? So obviously, there's so much more going on in a race weekend that nobody really notices. Although I must also admit that I do like auto sports is just a little bit hectic from time to time. But I guess it just depends on what kind of person you are and what you like. For example, I know Aaron Sparks has ADHD. So for him, it's kind of easy. It's difficult to kind of do a lot of things at the same time for him because it's hectic. But maybe for sim racing, it's the opposite because he's able to get like into the zone, right?
Yep.
So I feel like you just can't like cross a line somewhere and say, well, everybody's like this. No, not at all. It's actually rather the opposite. But I must say that I really do enjoy the, kind of different options that everybody has here. And I must say that no matter what the drivers are choosing for, it's been a race with some spectacular battles that we've seen throughout the race. And I think there's plenty of that to come as well.
Yeah, I think we had some good runs so far. 3 of note coming to mind in my head. We saw Ewing and Hill were battling for quite a while there, and then ultimately that didn't end up with much. Bixby Thomas was good, and then Vining Huntkiss pulling away a bit as Chris Vining managing to get himself some space with a couple of seconds between himself and Huntkiss, so got to admire him for his ability to push that one off for now. As he did come in off of cold tires, right into the hot seat, into first position, and immediately had a driver on his tail that he had to contend with, but did a nice job at giving himself some room to breathe. And now we'll go and see if he can set some nice lap times here and maybe set the pace for the rest of us.
Yep. I mean, for now, it's just a matter of focusing on your lap times, really. There's no real danger for everybody. For anybody, of course, I mean. Apologies. So for now, everybody's just kind of doing their own thing. And eventually, people will start meeting each other again. But for now, it's just getting your head down and doing what you're supposed to do. Now, these are always these kind of dull moments that you've got where it's just awkward when not a lot of racing is going on. Right? It's
Sort of just the
yeah, everybody's just doing
in-between
their own.
moments.
Yeah, and these dull races are always the hardest to follow broadcast, because at some point you just kind of run out of things to say. Now, I am not hiding that fact anymore, because I think sometimes silence is a little bit better than talking just to be talking, right?
Yep.
But obviously that differs as well, right? You could be very good at waffling and kind of be okay with them. People don't enjoy them. I mean, we've talked about everything. We've talked about cathedrals and pasta shapes, and I'm completely fine with that. Obviously, when I'm doing IRL commentary, that's different, right? Because that's more serious.
Yeah.
But this...
There's a little room to waffle.
Exactly. I feel like the environment is right for it. And not only that, it's also the fact that you've got drivers that, you know, aren't too worried about the performance here. Everybody's just having a good time. Because that's obviously what we're trying to achieve here as well. Time will tell how that will go down in the end. But I do admire the fact that we've got, you know, such a good environment going on that I'm just able to do whatever I want to do, I suppose, and not really having to worry about, you got to do this, you got to do that, which is a great way for me to kind of just relax for now and see if something else comes around.
Yeah, it's a great environment. It's really fun. I do quite enjoy it. I'm watching Samuel and Bugua right now, actually, because obviously there's quite a few things interesting about him and his car. Of course, the only Aston Martin on the track, but as we talked about, only controller player on the track as well, I believe.
Well, as far as my knowledge goes, that's true. I did actually confirm this with him as well. I sent him a DM on Discord the other day just to confirm that he was in fact still on controller. And I remember him saying as well that it's kind of hard to get by sim racing gear in Kenya, as obviously sim racing in itself is a niche. So depending on where you're from, where the companies are located, it's actually quite difficult to get them. For example, one of my friends lives in Toronto, Canada, just like you do. Yep. And some products are just so difficult to get, and the only real way to get them is to drive over to the US and then buy them there and get back home.
Yep.
Because there's no other option. And if you're in Toronto, I think you're pretty far away from America. This is my limited geography knowledge of the Americas goes.
It's a few hour drive whichever way you go. If you want to go there and back, you're probably looking at a 6-hour, 8-hour adventure at the minimum. And even then, you're just going to Buffalo, New York, or Niagara Falls. So not the commerce capitals of the world if you're looking for something highly specific.
But is that really 6 hours? So like I know I've got like I had to look up where Buffalo, New York is. I know where Toronto is, of course, but is it really that big of a difference? Like I know the US is and just in general continental America is just gigantic, right? And you never really notice this. But no way it's a 6-hour drive. I don't believe that.
No, 6 hours round trip, sorry.
Oh, like that. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. I was about to say, like...
No,
oh, man.
that's not quite that. That would be about New York City in 6 hours.
How big is Buffalo? I'm pretty sure it's like... I mean, you've probably got some places to buy sim racing gear there, right? It's probably big enough for that.
I would imagine. It's a fairly large city. But it's not... There's got to be somewhere. That's what I'll say. 200,000 people. So.
Oh yeah, that's more than
Decent.
enough. Like, I live in a relatively small city, 70,000 people roughly.
Oh, okay.
We don't get sim stuff here, but if I get to any neighboring bigger city, then there will be a place to buy that stuff
Right.
at least. But we've also got the luxury of just getting everything right just to these stores, and even if you want to get something niche, they'll usually either directly ship it, because EU shipping is usually just handled from like one place somewhere in Central Europe that they could just ship to, because obviously we've got no worries about making sure we've got open borders basically within the Schengen area, and that allows for goods to get in relatively easily, as long as you're not dealing with, for example, fresh as long as you're not dealing with non-EU goods or
Right.
fresh produce, for example. I think those are a little bit more tricky, or anything that's like chemical or whatever it might be. But I think for just those things, you could just order them, and worst case scenario, you just get another company to ship it from Germany to the Netherlands for you, and then you'll be fine. You'll get it just with a little bit of delay, and sure, you've got some extra cost, but with transport being such plentiful options, you'll find a way to do it for relatively cheap if you're willing to wait.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Are you willing to wait? Hopefully you are, but it is nice having the EU, the Schengen zone. That's what it's called.
Yeah, Schengen zone is what it's called.
Schengen zone. Yeah. It makes commerce very easy. Shipping things from America to here can be a bit of a pain in the ass. It's okay for the most part, but I know for a fact that Canada-U.S. Border Control loves to play with electronics. So if you order anything potentially delicate,
You might just screw it open and hammer it a couple
Yeah.
times. Oh,
Yep.
yeah, that's not too great here. Now, I just saw a big red square appear here, which says DT, and, any sim racing broadcaster or any sim racing viewer would immediately know what that stands for. Obviously, a drive-through penalty, and that means he's going to have to serve that. The way you get that is pretty simple. You cut the track 3 times. That's leaving you with a drive-through penalty. You're going to have to serve before you could actually serve your driver swap as well. So he's going to have to come in twice. Once just for driving through. It's going to cost him... Well, I don't know how long it is for this track. I don't think it's a ridiculously long pit road, so I think it's kind of okay. But even then, it's going to cost you valuable seconds. So you're going to fall behind Darren Christie for sure, with 7 seconds behind. I think you'll be able to be fine with Samuel Mbugua for now.
45 seconds should be a survivable gap.
It should be survivable, especially if you compare the lap times right now. Although actually, as I say that, I just realized that Chico Lanefair was actually quite slow that lap, and the lap before as well. So Samuel Mbugua is actually catching him slowly, so that drive-through could spice things up a little bit later on.
Yeah. Down the line, we don't often see, I suppose, the consequences of lost time immediately, but a driver that's able to maintain consistent lap times, as that drive-through on Chris Vining too.
Yep, and that's how it goes. Now, I was warned before. I don't know how much you have been paying attention to the general chat, but it has been pointed out multiple times, especially the last time, that we had quite a few drive-through penalties coming through, because there were a lot of people cutting corners. For example, I think there was one that got 4 drive-throughs in one race, which is pretty massive here. Dan Pickles also said, what is taking bets on what laps this evening I'll be getting a drive-through on? Says enough, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, coming back to the sim racing and buying stuff over from the US or wherever you might need them from, I'm actually quite lucky that everything I have is for sale. I'm not necessarily like willing to buy more stuff either, because I'm pretty satisfied with how my sim racing setup is here. For example, I've got, a simple wheel that is fun enough for me for now. Simple pedals. I mean, it's a G29, it's nothing fancy, but it gets the job done, it's fun. as Nukahanka takes over the lead on the background here as the drive-thru is being served. And yeah, personally for me, I'm pretty happy with how my setup is right now. I've got my sim lab chair and such, so I'm able to just kind of buckle up and take place in my seat. And well, I guess if I were to upgrade one thing, it would be a better monitor, but for now I'm quite satisfied. That's the thing though, I don't want to be spending money when I don't feel the absolute need to, because I feel like it doesn't necessarily make it more fun to just keep throwing money at it either way.
Not necessarily, especially depending on how you're using the equipment too, right? I've often fallen into the trap of buying expensive gear or equipment for a hobby that I don't do enough anyway, and the hobby almost becomes buying the gear, right? And I've got to remember to enjoy the sim racing, because otherwise, or not whatever it specifically is, but because otherwise it just becomes lost in the specifics of it.
Most definitely. And that's also like, how will things remain fun? If, you know, at least that's what I feel like. If I have to like buy a lot of stuff, I am immediately stressed if I will still be enjoying it. So if I buy something more expensive, I'll be like, oh, what if I don't like it? Or for example, even, what if I suddenly lose interest? And that causes me to lose interest.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you spend so much money, it's almost like I really want to justify the fact that I've spent that much money.
Yeah, so you have to
like,
you have to almost force yourself to do it almost.
Yeah, and I think that's where it goes wrong for me. So for now, I've kind of said to myself, I'm not making an upgrade to my setup until at least October. And I am pretty good at like setting that for myself and then actually making sure that I don't do it. So that's the upside for me, as well as the fact that I've got no money. But we'll leave that out of the equation here. But yeah, that helps a lot, obviously. Now, this is my only expensive hobby, luckily. I mean, unless if you consider going to motorsports events, I guess that's another one, if you think about it that way. Even though they're related in a way, they are different.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the way, what I did also point out, did forget to point out, is he was in the server for very short, and
yeah,
and he's been gone since. So
yeah,
I wonder what's happened to him.
We have another disconnect as you say that.
Yeah, it looked like it, but who's actually gone missing? See, I'm so bad at this. You've got your sheet right in front of you, don't you?
Yes.
You do the work for me then. Thank you.
Now I just have to play the matching game. I also have drivers from last week too, so I have to.
Oh yeah, that's gonna play into account. They know what you. No, it doesn't show on SimGrid either.
Is it Davy Hill Chico Lenfar?
No, that's a good guess actually. Yeah, we were spectating him, but I don't see him anymore. The 555 is indeed gone. They've got a quits, which is a shame. Don't know why the call has been that way, but that's a very unfortunate. And well, it is what it is, I suppose. There will be another chance, of course. They are still hanging out in the Discord, so I'm pretty sure that I could get my reasoning behind it a little bit later on as well, but I'm gonna come back to that just a little bit later. But yes, you are correct, and that's also our first, well, if you don't consider any Watts joining for just a second and leaving, then
yeah,
I think it's safe to say that's our first like true disconnect.
Yeah, that it will be. And I mean, we made it an hour and 28 minutes into the race. Not too terrible overall, I'd say. Good amount of driving from all the teams here. As we are getting a little bit of a battle here, as we have Jack Christie versus Puche. Puche trying to take over Christie in the 6th spot.
It's gonna be an important battle, though. You might not realize this, but I think just the difference between, you know, getting into the top 50% here is pretty huge, right? It's just such a confident booster, knowing that you're better than average. This is how I always tend to, and I know this is purely me as well, but I tend to be so competitive in the things I do.
Yeah.
And I refuse to be doing something that I'm bad at. I'd rather just quit completely or actually practice until I'm good, you know? I started running thinking, it's a fun pastime and I don't do any sports anymore, so I need to get active, you know, get out there in nature. Now I'm like, I need to do a marathon this year. Otherwise, it's not worth it. And it's like, that kind of gets in your head, doesn't it? Now I've just seen that Aaron Sparks has been joining us in chat. Hello, Aaron. How is it going, mate? Good to see you here.
Oh, no, I fully agree on that. I have to commit myself fully, or I can't commit at all, basically, is the idea. I do not enjoy being bad at anything. It's just not a... I don't know, I think it may be a bit of a reason why we're in esports, that competitive nature. Pritchett here is quite hot on Jack Christie's tail. Gonna lose the track a little bit on that one, but going to be okay as the battle continues here.
Yeah, so the interesting part here, to me, if you look at the lap times, Pritchett is doing significantly faster laps, but now it's across the line, it's kind of equal again. So was that just that one exception that's kind of pushed him there? Now, is it just the one exception that's kind of now setting the pace for it, or was it just one outlier lap that we shouldn't take into consideration at all? Because I do think that Pritchett is on paper slightly quicker. However, last lap was, from the both of them, very slow compared to what they usually do here. So maybe there was a little bit of, you know, just more defending, and that caused them both to go slower. That's how it usually goes. But then again, you know, maybe it's not representative at all. And I obviously don't keep track of all the laps. That would be impossible. So I've only got the last and the best lap right behind me.
Yeah.
But it does, you know, kind of reach questions like, is Jack Christie able to hold on to this position long enough, at least until the driver swaps? And my guess right now, it would be yes. But I think he's going to have to do a hell of a job to defend actively the entire way. But I do think that he has the skill level for it, as well as the kind of, you know, peace of mind to actually focus on. I've only seen him frustrated once, which says a lot because he's still pretty young. He's a little bit younger than I am, I believe. I think he's like around 18 or something along those lines here.
Okay.
And I do love that state of mind here. Now that battle has been called off, as fortunately Jack Christie has decided to come in here to do their last swap of the day here. So that's going to be interesting towards the later part of the race, because the other drivers still have to come in once, whereas now we are within that mark that everybody that comes in now is within that 65-minute timer. So therefore, they don't have to come in again, which is then going to play a bigger part later on as well. That's where we can really see, well, it has to be a wise decision for Jack Christie to kind of call it a day here. Now, as he had mentioned before, he was a little bit slower, and Dan Pickles is a driver that I know that is able to make up a lot of the time, but time will tell, I suppose here. Aaron Sparks says, well, I was slow on my spin comparatively, but it's worth doing it badly at first, eh? Otherwise, I never would have started. Yeah, exactly. And also, no worries about it. You're holding on. You're doing your thing. And honestly, I don't think it was bad at all from you. You are being stable, which is better than the most people could ask for here. I mean, we've got Declerc, for example, who is doing... We just did a 147, significantly slower than the rest, with a massive kind of dip below here, as Dan Pickles just made his way out now. They're done with the pit stops. They are now the first one that did complete their 2 pit stops here, because timing it to only be doing 1 would be pretty much mathematically impossible here. Yeah,
there's no... Race is 10 minutes too long for that one, unfortunately, so...
That makes me
mandatory...
think, why don't we just put it at 2 mandatory pit stops then? Because then it would be so much easier for us to kind of...
follow along who's done it, yeah.
Exactly, because now I know Dan Pickles done it, but now we gotta keep attention to what also comes in. I need a pen, but I don't have a pen here.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
I don't have one, unfortunately. Well, with my average, with max driver stint with a pit stop is 1 hour and... Yeah, exactly, that's the thing. You won't reach it. Hey Jack, how's it going? good stint you had. It's a shame you decided to come in rather than battle your way through, but I think you're thinking about the long-term in, which is arguably as important, if not more important in the first place here. There's Vining, currently set in P3, trying to battle back here. Ukasic did come ahead here after that penalty was collected here.
Yeah, it worked out in his favor that Vining got the drive through, but...
I don't know if you saw that, but Mikro Ukasic looked a little bit too probable happy there and went sliding a itty bitty tiny bit.
Ooh, I think I just missed it when I was switching. Okay.
It's not
keep an eye on him.
Too bad right now. Although, like, if this is a sign that their tires might be done for, then I'm curious to see what their plan is for the rest of it. I mean, they have to come in, but if you're going to be that much slower, then how is they going to play into the rest of the race? Now, I did just notice that Chris Vining obviously is still the, well, basically the fastest team on track together with team of Handke in terms of lap times, and by quite a big margin here as well. So maybe I am just over-exaggerating here a little bit here. The battle could very well go either way still here, as Ukasic seems to have found pace. So I guess I was worrying for nothing then.
It seems like they're doing okay for now, but we'll have to see. And have another bit of a battle forming here between Pina and Giese. As Danilo Pina trying to make some ground here. Giese got a fair advantage here for the moment, but on the straightaway, Pina taking a look around to see what he can see. And for the moment, it's nothing. Keep an eye on these two here as they continue to take the corners, but not too heated just yet for those. Check in on Vining and Ukasic, but both of the battles maintaining a fair enough margin. Have to wait and see how long they're willing to battle this out, as we're down to about the 45-minute mark. As we keep stressing, there is going to have to be another pit stop for both teams. So I guess the question is, do you try and win the battle now, or do you just call it? And do you go into the pit, get your other driver, and hope that they can make up for it when the other driver inevitably has to pit? So
that's always tough, right? Because then again, it feels frustrating to give up immediately here, as Pina is still very close by and he's taking all the preparation necessary here. The thing is, you're going to be holding each other up for a little bit as well. So time will tell how that plan is, as Dominguez has come in just now. So he's serving the pit stop first. And then I think it's all going to come down to what Pina's plan is. Is he going to go the other way, the entire way, and just, you know, push through the last couple laps here on these, well, these old tires? As in my opinion, going for a tire swap now is just self-sabotage at this point, right? Especially if you got only 10 minutes to go. But these tires are good for, well, I want to say 90 minutes is completely okay. And I feel like anything above that, you kind of have to make the decision. Am I going to go into the race focusing extra on my tire wear, or am I going to be focusing on race pace and getting once? I think that's kind of where you get to decide that, really. And with 90 minutes, I think that's kind of the mark where people do come in as even the more experienced driver. With 75 minutes, you'll see that the less experienced drivers always go, because obviously they aren't quite as good at managing the tires than your teammates are, or well, their more experienced opponents are, I suppose. But the thing is that you have to keep in mind is that, well, when you're doing such a race, you want to make sure that your tire swap is logical. No point in driving for 2 hours and then pinning for tires, right? So obviously you're going to try and plan it in the middle, preferably with your driver swaps. You don't have to come in again. But that does also mean And now we're getting quite a bit of difference now between how the tires are going to end up depending on when they went in initially the first time round. Because if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong by any means, I think Antonella Pina was very late pitting together with Chris Vining as they were driving towards the top back then.
No, I think you're correct on that one. And I guess, yeah, you're right. They were there quite a long time. And the battles were kind of drawn out there. So they may, in fact, choose to go for a bit more of a wait here. Maybe feel like they have a bit more time. Chris Vining, of course, locked up now with the first place, Mirko Ukusic. And interesting note here, Dominic Geese went in for a pit stop, but did not change drivers. So he's staying on.
Oh, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So dropped down to 7th, but not choosing to swap just yet, as Ukusic is dinged for a drive-through penalty.
That's tough. He got the penalty, decides to immediately take it, right? He just wants to get it over with. The thing is now, is that that's such a heartbreak for him as well. Now, Chris Vining, obviously, he was the one to get a drive-through earlier, and then allowed Ukusic to get in front. But now that he's got a drive-through himself for getting the track 3 times, he is now going to have to come in and then give over the position to Vining again. So everything that he worked so hard for just falls apart in such a small moment, all because he went to cut the corner just one time too many. And of course, yes, that's frustrating, that's harsh, that's how racing is sometimes. And well, he served this now, and he actually did end up dropping down to P3 even. So yeah, that's quite tough there, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit of a heartbreaker on that one after been locked in such a long, arduous battle this whole entire race that Ukusic has been driving, of course. But at the same time, had the same opportunity that Vining did, and this is where you end up. So Van de Weege coming out of the pit stop after a very, very long pit there. And they'll finish their driver swap as well.
Get it over with. I mean, at this point, I feel like you might as well. And as Jack Christie has pointed out in the chat as well, he said himself he wasn't comfortable in the car. Daniel's a lot quicker, that being Dan Pickles, of course. So they've made the decision to kind of shorten the stint of Jack Christie a little bit. To ensure that the driver that is feeding himself a little bit more is also able to, you know, put that to the test. And I feel like when you have a scenario where one of your drivers really isn't feeling it, or you know, is slow compared to the teammate, it is harsh. But you're a team, you want the best for the team in the end. And well, obviously you want to have your part in the, you know, success of your team. But I feel like another skill and a very important aspect is just being able to put your ego aside and realize that you might not be the perfect man for the job, or at least just not currently in the state of mind to produce the results that you are hoping for with your team. So I think actually what he's done is pretty admirable.
Absolutely. That's the hardest thing in any sport or esport alike, because of course you play these games or participate in these competitions because you want to win and you want to compete. And unlike a team sport like, say, you know, soccer or hockey, where you might be on the team with your teammates, this is one where in order for your team to win, you have to sit and watch from the sidelines. So to be able to do that and say, yeah, getting our team up there is more important, yeah, you gotta love that.
Yeah, most definitely. And now obviously racing is a little bit more of a gentleman's sport. I mean, if you pull aside MotoGP, Formula 1, etc., obviously it is a most of the time it's a true team effort, and it's also a gentleman's sport here, as I just see that Dominic Geese has unfortunately picked up a drive-through penalty just now. So he's going to be having to serve that as well. It's quite a shame to see things go that way here. Samuel Mbugua is headed into the pits here, and that makes me think that we're going to see Aaron Sparks into the car one more time. And that might just be the last that we see of Samuel Mbugua. I should probably, in game, in this race, I should probably specify.
He'll be back again very soon. But you have to think that we're getting into the territory where you can't do what was it Geese, I believe, that pitted without swapping.
I might have been. I'm
not
entirely
but
sure now.
I don't think you have that same luxury anymore. I think we're too late into the race here. Anytime we see a pit, maybe I spoke too soon, as it appears that it is Mbugua driving out of the pit.
Yeah, so he stayed out there, as Aaron Sparks has pointed out as well. Aaron Sparks just said in chat Samuel's quicker, so they have decided to
Fair enough.
Stay out, which is also a very honorable thing to do. Right? Now I know Mr. Sparks very well, and obviously he is definitely somebody that wants the best for everybody. He's definitely not the driver to, just kind of let it be. He definitely wants the best for everybody, and therefore I think his decision is logical. The only thing that I don't like is that he sometimes thinks a little bit too poorly of himself, because I think he's actually quite a good driver, and on top of that also just probably one of the nicest lads I've ever met. But, I think it's safe to say that Aaron Sparks should sometimes actually do the opposite of what I recommend most people doing. That's just to put your ego on there a little bit more. And
more ego, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very rare I say that, because I admire his mindset into this, but I just want him to also, get that feeling that, he is able to do it himself, because I believe that he absolutely can do it. And he has shown it in multiple seasons as well, right? When he was in the Mercedes GT3, that was before last season when he swapped over to the GT2s. That's where we saw as well that he definitely was a threat to some of the drivers that are known to be very quick split two drivers. Now a lot of them don't race anymore here, if you're replaced. And although I do think that Aaron Sparks has fallen back a little bit when it comes to the overall standings, but I don't think he's getting slower. No, I just think that the quality of racers that we've got on the server has just improved,
right,
to a very high standard, where we see the usual suspect, right? Chico Lanefire is a driver that was always at the top. Sure, he's had his small hiatus, I know that, but even then you kind of see that he is struggling to stay up with the big boys, and so is Chris Tedder, and so is John Dudley at times, and well, David Hill's still up there, but he practices a lot, and you can tell. But with Chris Vining coming in, with, for example, Clive Bixby being on the server, we've got Todd Brown, some really rapid drivers that we've got, Britt Batiste, returning to Amigos as well. Those are some names that are gonna do massive damage, and I think that the grid has improved to such a high way that the drivers that I know as the fastest drivers now are competitive midfielders at best. Not because they're getting worse. In fact, they're still improving. No, it's the opposite here. It is just that everybody joining now is just so quick nowadays. Which, I guess I can only say that that's a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's an interesting sentiment. It's when I saw, I mentioned the major. I was working this weekend, same sentiment expressed there across a different game, but so much opportunity to learn and practice online these days. I think that when you do choose to enter competition, you can enter at a quite high level, and from there you have the chance to leapfrog and learn from some excellent veteran drivers, and of course Amigos has no shortage of that, so no doubt people are just going to continue to get better and better as John Dudley taps in to the race.
Yeah, he's back on at least here. Matthias Pritch is still in the pit. He's been there for quite a while. John Dudley has just made his way out there, replacing Richard Christie. Now, I was actually just curious as well. What is like your, when you say the best of the best, the finest of the finest, what is like the analogy that you use in Canada? Because we use the nose of the salmon, but I was just curious what that is for you.
The cream of the crop.
Ah, right.
Yeah, that's the one. I actually, now that you've made me say that, I guess it's just the best of a crop that you pull. Yeah. I suppose that would be all it was. Yeah. Kind of a strange one, as most of us here are not farmers, but
I mean, I live in the
nose of the
countryside.
salmon is pretty good.
I mean, I've just put it in, in like the Google Translate for sentences. Oh no, it's like reversal on that. It's kind of the same thing, and it recognizes context and such.
Okay.
So they say cream of the crop, which you just said. The bee's knees.
Yeah.
The cat's meow. The pick of the bunch, and the top of the bill. And then of course you've got your, a little bit more direct ways of saying it, like state of the art and best of the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's such a fun analogy.
The cat's meow is funny that they put that, because I don't think it's been used since the 1930s, but it is still a valid statement. Maybe I'll have to use that one more.
Cream always rises to the top. That's true. Who's that? I don't know if you know this. There's like this American, I think he's a physicist that's like over YouTube Shorts and YouTube like everywhere now, or some podcasts or whatever, just educating people or telling stories about like the universe and physics and science and biology and whatnot. Black guy. I don't know what his name is.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, maybe?
I think so. I think that might have been the name. Yeah, he's a super smart guy. And now I am finally like able to pull the strings together on this one. Because I watched a YouTube short where he was in, where he had an argument with somebody in a coffee bar because they didn't put cream in his chocolate milk or whatever he was getting. It was like, yeah, it's sunk, right? And now that somebody says the cream always rises to the top, Aaron just pointed out, I can finally see why that makes sense when you translate it into the sense of the best of the best, because it's always going to the top, right? To the best position. So it's kind of fun that I am like able to string things together in my head now. It's taken it a while, but I'm getting there. I'm finally understanding English, even though I've been speaking it since I was, 13 years old or whatever, but we're getting there.
So am I, if it makes you feel any better. And I've been speaking it since I was born. Well, I guess that's not true.
Well,
since
it's the first language you learned.
Yeah, whenever you start talking. Probably was since then.
I mean, if my girlfriend gives birth to somebody and, it's immediately fluent in any language, I'd probably be a little bit scared, to say the least.
That would be pretty terrifying. Or kind of cool. I mean, saves you a step of training them. Guy Cunahan back in the race.
Oh, have we got Guy Cunahan? You gotta remind me who he's in the team with, because I don't see him yet.
Darren Christie.
Thank you. I should have seen that on the pit thing. Now, the weird thing is, Matthias Pritchard has been standing here for a very long time.
Yeah, I was looking at that as well. I have a feeling that...
might have called it quits.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see... It's been... I don't know, I can't actually tell how long it's been. A couple of minutes, though. Returning now seems a little strange, but...
True. Now, most definitely here, as we see Guy Cunahan just making his way through now. He's kind of driving in no man's land here. Curva Tramonto coming right up. As the field is kind of, compacted a little bit earlier, and now is kind of spreading further away from each other again here. As it's Chris Vining to lead the race comfortably here. They've got a 28-second lead with only 27 minutes of the race remaining here. And, well, I don't want to say that they've got it in the bag. Now they still got to keep pushing it, right? You can lose a second per lap and you're fine. But obviously you would prefer to just kind of keep this distance, right? You never know when you're going to make a mistake, I suppose, here. But Yeah, the gap
And
does end up building up. And it makes sense, right? Because even just being half let's say you're 1/10 per lap quicker, right? They're on 73 laps. That's going to make quite the difference then.
Yeah. Quite the performance from Chris Vining on this one. Am I correct that they're probably going to have a mandatory driver swap though before?
Yeah, it should be.
You can finish. Yeah.
But the thing is, what you'll usually see, that the drivers that are ahead will try and pit a little bit later so they can work on their gaps so that they don't get back up in traffic. Because if you pit early while you're in the lead, you're going to be stuck behind a lot of drivers that haven't pitted yet. So some of them might, not be able to let you through smoothly, or some might even, actively defend, not realizing that there's already somebody who's, coming to the pits and lapped. So therefore, it's better to kind of build off that distance before pitting, knowing that you're going to be ahead of the slower drivers that have pitted anyways, because you are going to be making up time, even though you might be on older tires or whatever the scenario might be. So I think that move makes a lot of sense here. So I'm thinking that towards the end of the race, even though we have seen a couple come in, right, you're just not going at the same time anymore, as it doesn't really matter now. It's just a matter of finding that one gap, and once you found that gap, just pulling through with it. Because to be honest, it doesn't really matter if it's Thomas or Vining driving. They're both doing a massive job, and they're both really quick. So to be honest, it really doesn't matter who's behind the wheel to me. They're both quick enough to get it across the line. It's just going to be a matter of who gets it across the line first.
Yeah, it's a really impressive team here. I think this is the team that finished first last week as well, I believe. And
you're correct.
Yeah, they just can't seem to be stopped, these two. I don't know. No matter what happens, we saw some adversity for them here today. We saw them locked in tight battles, I think as low as 3rd, maybe 4th place. And nonetheless, you see it here, as we were just talking about, 2nd per lap on the gap. So it's quite impressive how far away they've been able to pull.
Yeah, most definitely here. Now, the thing is, you could look at this from two sides, and you're kind of contradicting each other. Because one side of me is saying it's impressive that they built up a 30-second gap. But then if you compare that to the gap per lap, right, on average, it's really not that far. But then also, being able to be that much faster per lap over such a long period of time is then also impressive in itself. So I find it very hard to measure how impressive these things are. But don't get me wrong, 30 seconds is a massive gap to have. As that's gonna, I don't know exactly, the lap times are currently 1:30. Somebody can do the math out there, I can't be bothered, but... but trust me, this is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and we'll see how long they can keep it up. I think they've got about 8 minutes before the mandatory pit if it's the 65-minute timer. My earlier math is correct, so let's see how far he can get on that one before having to go in. And in the meantime, Pietro Marchione is back in the race. Antonella Pinella is out.
Yeah, but that's also the thing I wanted to point out here. The way I look at it now is, right, it's also the outside factors that play into this here. So Chris Vining, was the one to start in front and has kind of just stayed there. So he's always going to be a little bit more favored. So for him to pull away is still going to be very important earlier on, right? So he didn't have to fight his way through, luckily, yet.
True, yeah.
But just looking at how the field fares, it looks like most of the drivers have gained a couple positions thanks to the DNF. But other than that, it's been a race where we've had no major fall-offs or somebody just able to really excel. But that makes sense because there's just very little drivers out there. So if you are making a massive comeback race, usually that's because something's happened, right? It's not like you just magically gain pace over one qualifying session. So if you've done your qualifying, it doesn't necessarily mean like that you... How do I say this properly? If you are quick in races, you're most likely also quick in qualifying, right? So
Yeah.
a comeback race of a faster driver only really happens if for some reason he's either starting from the pits or he's finding himself at the back of the field for any other reason. For example, a crash or something along those lines. So, to me, that's pretty interesting, right? How does that fare in the end? And, well, I do think that the drivers in front have done a massive job so far.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of keeping that up. Whereas Mirko Kosic is once again coming out here, so no driver swap there, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you're correct. It's sort of surprising.
But keep in mind, now this is the thing as well, this might be a little bit on me. A driver stint doesn't necessarily mean they need a driver swap. They need to come in, I think, because a stint is something else than a swap. A stint just means you have to come in.
Ah, okay.
But I'm not sure
yes.
how it is interpreted here.
That's a good point.
So
Yeah, so...
I can't tell you, to be honest. I'm just gonna have to explain this to me. Because I don't know.
Yeah, if it's a stint, then we're probably in good shape. And although I do believe Chris Vining will have to pit, probably won't have to swap. Because I do think he's coming up on at least 65 minutes.
Yes, Aaron Sparks point out a full driver allowed time was 1 hour 40 minutes here. So basically the drivers are in need of a pit stop every 65 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then every individual driver is allowed to be driving for 1 hour and 40 minutes in total. So that is more than... I mean, if you were to do that the entire way, the race is 2 hours and 24 minutes long. So that would leave one driver to do... Oh, my math isn't mathing anymore. I'm too tired, I'm afraid, after all the commentating. I'm pretty sure you get what I'm trying to say with this, though.
I know where you're going, though, the relativity of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. But the full time without pit, yeah, that was 1 hour and 5 minutes. So that's also another thing you see during endurance racing, where it is not only that you got to pay attention to. It's also the fact that you aren't allowed to come in at some point. So that also, in a worst case scenario, and let's say a 24-hour race, it could mean that, you know, you can't just... How do I say this? So, for example, if I were to do a long race, then I gotta think as well, like, when do I put certain drives in the car? Because in the end, if you find out that, well, nobody's able to get in the car because they've done a maximum drive time.
Oh, yeah.
And you've
Then
only got
you're
one
really in
driver
trouble.
stable, but he needs to swap. Exactly. And now, obviously, during these events, they're taking that into consideration as well. There obviously is, normally at least, a pretty big margin as well, because you want the race to be dynamic in the sense that if something happens on track, you should be able and should well be encouraged to enact on it. And whether that is by staying out or coming in doesn't really matter. But the more options you have, the more complicated the race is gonna get, but also the more entertaining the race is gonna get. So to me, it's kind of a little bit of both. But I do think that it is a good addition to have maximum driver time as well, just to avoid people from, you know, doing this basically solo.
Yeah.
It seems, well, I mean, the whole goal of this is to be a driver swap event, so
Yep.
we've got to do a driver swap event.
Yeah, 100%. There has to be some sort of limitations on the drivers. Speaking of driver swap, Michael Thomas back in the race for Chris Vining. And they've dropped to second place, but as we've said, Clyde Bixby will have to come in off of his stint. So they should be able to make up some time there.
And then there's also something you got to take into consideration, as Aaron Sparks points out correctly. Now, I did actually notice, but the cars only hold 120 liters, at least most of them.
Mm.
And that's not enough to last you the entire race either, so you have to kind of fill up. Which then again adds to the having to refuel and using that to your advantage, as you're going to have to pit for 25 seconds anyway. So refueling goes really quick. I don't know how many liters you can do per second, but you can do quite a bit. Right? Obviously, these cars are designed to be refueled up quickly, as you don't want to be standing there with your jerry can just waiting for everything to kind of drip in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a very good point Aaron Sparks is making as well. 120 liter is enough to lead you through the entire race. And you're going to feel that.
It is or isn't?
Yep. And yes, I did actually mention as well, as Aaron Sparks now pointing out, I did point out the fact of the tires. I just forgot to kind of go with the fuel and such. But yes, you are correct as well. Same goes for the tire state. Well, if you're managing to keep them on for 2 hours and 24 minutes, congratulations. But it was still a stupid move nevertheless, as you've just basically shot yourself in the foot and then tried to award yourself something for it. It's giving yourself a medal after shooting yourself in the foot. That's basically what it is. You've lost it the entire race on the same tires. But why would you do that? Right?
Why, yeah. that's just unhinged.
Exactly. Now we are getting closer to the end of the race here. There's 16 minutes remaining. As we are currently at 1:32 in the night here. But we cannot confirm that it is going to stay dry the entire way through. Which is obviously very important.
Yep.
Gonna play quite the difference, obviously.
Yeah, make the drivers' lives a lot easier, so very even track conditions this whole entire evening, so we have to enjoy that.
Most definitely.
We wait and see if any final action will be coming our way here in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, time will tell, I suppose. Although I do admit that at this point I do feel like the majority of the drivers are currently in set positions unless something major happens, right? John Dudley is a driver that could potentially move up one position as Dan Pickles is 6 seconds ahead. But for example, right, Clive Bixby, most likely nothing's gonna happen here anymore unless he picks up a drive-through, which would be absolutely dramatic. If he could just keep it within the white lines for now, they should be fine for a victory here, as Thomas obviously had to struggle a little bit later and has just done their pit stop. Actually, that made me think, well, 35 seconds. No, Clive Bixby, if I'm not mistaken, is going to have to come in.
I believe he will. I believe he will have one more pit stop
So
that
that
he has to make.
would mean that Michael Thomas pushes up to prime position again, where he's in P1 and will take the victory, and deservedly so, to be fair. Yeah, I gotta also admit that. That's just how it is.
Yeah, no, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe... I have a little... I've been keeping track here, and I don't believe they've pitted just yet. Granted, I didn't check when they pitted initially for the first time. But we will have to wait and see. With the 65-minute timer, it's cutting it very, very close.
Yeah, well, time will tell, I suppose, to see what the plans are. I'm not necessarily worried about anything just yet. I think they'll be able to do fine here. But yeah, for Clive Bixby, I mean, it's been a hell of a stint. Right? It's been on the car for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how these drivers do it, man. I'm sweating after 30 minutes of racing.
Even commentating, I'm getting a little tired.
Yeah, no, most definitely. But it is also just intensive, just in a different way, right? They're way more physical. We got to keep our throats nice. And then also we have to just ensure that there's always something to talk about, which is easier said than done, right? A lot of people don't realize how hard commentating is until they've done commentating once.
Yeah, you wake up real quick. You go,
Yeah, maybe this is harder than fun. I thought, with my experience in CS, I could probably do commentary. Come on, I know a lot about the game. Well, I was mistaken. And it takes a lot of practice, and people don't notice this. If you compare my very first SRO Corsa Competizione broadcast, where nothing was working and things were very stressful, because there was a bug that a bug that actually ended up getting to me. And then in the end, it turned out that, well, you know, I didn't know of the bug and it was easily fixed, but I didn't know how to fix it as I never heard of the bug. So that was a great start already. And I was nervous, obviously, it being my first sim racing broadcast, even though there's nothing on the line. But it gets to you. And every time you pick up something new, no matter how good you are naturally at entertaining, you're always going to be a little bit stressed because you're not entirely sure how things are going to be going. But to me, it's just like, you know, sure, you get used to it, but first you actually gotta do it, which is very, very difficult.
It is, and you have to do it a lot too. That's the real key, in my opinion. Even if it's not online or whatever, I don't know. I sometimes practice offline, but the more time that you don't spend talking is going to make every time that you do a little bit tougher. And it's also come down to exposure to the game too. It helps if you know the game state and the way things are going to be flowing, but being able to communicate that and use proper words and sound good doing it and this and that. And there's so many aspects to it that aren't often seen or thought about until someone is sitting in the chair.
No, not at all. Now, for me, I personally tend to just think about it this way, right? When somebody handles you critique, I always think, you know, like, is this person, like, first of all, does he have valid points? And second of all, who is he to kind of judge, right?
Yeah.
For me, I will always try and incorporate feedback. Unless I, like, disagree. But even though I think that usually the best is given to, you know, like, best feedback is given by the people that, you know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I do think sometimes it's also good to just use the fact that the, you know, people that don't know as well are giving you feedback, because it allows you to think in a different way, which then I think is also a very important aspect that people, you know, don't really think about.
Well, that's it, right? And so often it's to those people to whom you're broadcasting. You know, in this case, I think, for example, with broadcasting, there's a lot of people that know what's going on, and they're not necessarily coming in with a small knowledge base. But if you're broadcasting to people in a more general sense, to people watching a game they don't know or a sport they don't know, then their feedback can be good, because they're the ones the most in need of commentary, and they'll often have something good to give.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, for me, I must say that I very rarely get much feedback in, because I've kind of find myself at the awkward split that where in CS I don't want to like sound cocky, but I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about, right? I've kind of built that up over experience over the years, because it's my expertise, right? I know the game in and out. But for me to be in sim racing and stuff is so weird. It's so weird because, like, sure, people give you feedback and such, but in a sense, there's way less on the line, so people kind of don't. I mean, not necessarily don't care about it, but it's just they either don't bother giving you the feedback, or it's like, you know what, it's fair enough, but I can't actively work on it as much as I want anyways, for me to put myself to certain standards, right? Because I hold myself to certain standards within certain games, and those standards vary per game. But for sim racing, you bet it's lower than it is for Counter-Strike, because I simply have less experience and I do it less, etc. So that sometimes kind of is a little bit tricky for me to, you know, get a hang of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a delicate balance that is not easily set. At least not quickly set, I guess you could say.
No, most definitely not there. Now, obviously, even though I do feel like the stream has been going on very well, the other thing that I also gotta say is that obviously I am a little bit tired after today. Entire day of motorsports commentary, then heading on the mic here, even though I'm feeling it, you know, because I've been around cars the entire day and I'm hyped to do so.
Yeah.
at some point the fatigue will get to you. Now, I'm no one to complain, and I'm not one to make excuses, but it is also a factor that is obviously playing into account, right?
Yeah, being mentally alert is a hard thing to do. Because it's not as easy to realize when you're mentally tired and mentally exhausted. If you're physically tired, my arms hurt. And then you're physically tired. When you're mentally exhausted, you just find yourself, less sharp than you usually feel you are, and tripping over words maybe, and tougher to gauge that going into something else, and that can take its toll for sure.
Absolutely. Now, I don't know how many other games you do. I think you've mentioned that you do Valorant, which already makes me think less of you, which is not a personal attack or anything. Yeah. What other fields do you dip into?
Well, just listen. Just on Valorant, we don't have a Counter-Strike team in Humber at the college, so I had no choice. I had to do it, and that's my legal defense. So
no, I'm not blaming you at all, and I'm not seeing you as a lesser person for it. But I am slightly disappointed that you do have a Valorant team, but no CS team, especially in the current state North American Counter-Strike is in. You need it.
I don't disagree with you. It's just like all the kids like Valorant now, man.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
They come out of high school and they're like, ooh, Valorant.
Ooh, shiny games with abilities. See, the thing is, people always say to me that I've got no fair critique on Valorant and those kind of games. Well, I've got my fair bit of critique, which is I am too stupid to understand what's going on, and therefore I stick to Counter-Strike. And that's literally what it is. I am so hilariously bad at anything with abilities. I can't get the hang of it. Overwatch, absolute no-go. MOBA games, no shot. And Valorant was just like, I played one game during the beta and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't know what others are doing. And then it just becomes less fun. Whereas with CS or Call of Duty, I can feel like I can actually pick it up and after some practice get the hang of it, right?
Yeah, it's very, it's Valorant's tough, especially for commentating, because, instead of having someone throw a smoke, they throw an ability that is a smoke, but it just has a weird name. So you have to remember all this extra stuff, all this, all the ability names that are really just smokes, and then all the ability names that are really just mollies. And it's just like, I don't know. It's a lot of performative stuff.
Most definitely, I agree, although I don't know what that performative actually means, but I'll believe you.
Just for show, basically.
Oh, yeah, alright.
Instead of just having a smoke at it, it's gotta be an ability name.
Yeah, exactly. And then also just the way that you could, build walls instantly, or, just throw an airstrike somewhere. It's just, it gets too complicated for me. I just want to see a person running around and shoot him. If that makes sense.
Yep. I'm with it. No, I don't disagree. Might like to try Counter-Strike 2 at some point.
You haven't yet?
I have not. I played it, but I've never commentated.
Yeah, so obviously for me, the story was a little bit different. I obviously came from competitive Counter-Strike, kind of realized like, hey, never gonna make it big. At some point it became more of a chore, then it actually became, a game that I enjoyed playing. So therefore I think it made a lot of sense to me to just be involved in the game, but also just being able to, do my own thing and no longer having that pressure of sitting behind my PC for hours while I'm not enjoying it, right?
Yeah. And I think commentary is a good little marriage of both of those worlds.
It was either this or stay within the Team CS factor and then go for something like coaching a team or becoming an analyst. And even though I had the in-game capabilities and understanding tactically, it also would mean that you have to deal with a lot of the other drama that happens within teams, right? Discussions, people getting frustrated with each other. And that is something that I'm just not good at all. That's something that I've struggled with during my, well, career, if I can even call it that, as a player. So therefore, I was like, I'm not sure. And sure, and this is going to sound maybe a little bit weird, but I like to make others happy, and that at some point was just my main goal in life, right? Not my own success, not my nothing. It was just me. I played the worst roles in every team Counter-Strike I've ever been on. I did all the dirty jobs, and I didn't care because it allowed others to be set up for success. Now with commentating, it's like kind of the same thing, because I love doing commentating, but I also get to make other people happy, right? Just hearing people in chat saying, oh, that was such an entertaining stream, or, you know, somebody dropping by on Twitter saying, like, hey, man, I really enjoyed your commentating, or, you know, hey, would you like to perhaps do this event because we think you're really good? And that means a lot to me, right? Just that.
It's very rewarding.
Most definitely. And it's
a
job that isn't always compensated for monetarily, right? I do a lot of things on a volunteer basic, which I have no problem with. But I do really, you know, enjoy that. And for me, that's just a very nice way to do it. Here we go. Announcement made. Final lap.
Let's see how things end up working out. Only possibility is Mirko Ukasic and Marcione. Closest gap that I can see.
Even then, 1.2 is a lot to make up in one lap. And then also getting by. Because obviously just having that gap narrowed to 0 is enough. You still need to actually get in front at some point, which is easier said than done, of course. But we're going to keep an eye on how things go here, as Clive Bixby, the race leader, is going to finish the race in P1, 20 seconds ahead of Mr. Thomas here. It was them to have a relatively trouble-free race compared to the others. Thomas obviously did a massive job. Unfortunately, the penalty that they picked up, which proved to be a little bit too much. Same came for Ukasic, Marcion, I believe, at some point as well, which then ended up costing them, unfortunately, towards the end.
You know, all our top performers actually grabbed drive-through at some point.
Even Clive Bixby and such, I do think they did play something smart then, because, I mean, they're quick, but 20-second gap quick, I'm not sure. But regardless of what it might be, as he almost goes off into the very last corner, style points are awarded here for Clive Bixby as he finishes the race in P1, a well-deserved result. And that also means that Dominic Gies finishes a lap down, but also finishes P5, so a pretty good result from Chris Tedder and Dominic Gies here. Michael Thomas then finishing, as the drivers ahead of him are just finishing on a couple laps down here as well. So it's Dan Pickles, John Dudley in P6 and 7 as Michael Thomas takes down P2. Because now it's just a matter of waiting for the drivers to finish in P3 and fill up the last spots as well. This is Kai Kunahan we're aboard with. Kind of a no man's land for now. As him and Jack Christie ended up in P8, or a result that will give them mixed feelings, I suppose. They obviously already said that Jack Christie wasn't really feeling it. But I do still think they've done a good job of keeping things stable here. Marcione is still out there here, and he's going to finishing the race in P3 here. And actually, Ukasic not that far off. Unfortunately, just wasn't able to do it. Just leaves two drivers remaining here. Samuel Mbugua to finish in P9. So now finishing second to last on the server in terms of the drivers that actually finished. But even then, I think Samuel Mbugua and Aaron Sparks definitely showed their potential within the moments here. So they're going to be finishing the race. As we are just waiting for Dylan van der Wegen to finish the race here. But it seems they're taking their sweet time and taking the touristic route.
Yeah, enjoying the view, waving to the crowds, the usual.
Now the virtual NPC crowd.
Yeah.
Oh, guys of mine. Did I say something else? Wait, did I say something else? I might have. Yeah, Dan Pickles and Jack Christie. Oh, it's on my dad's team. Guys on my dad's team. Yes, no. Now it makes sense. Yeah, I missed the second message and then I got confused. I thought I messed it up here. Van der Wegen taking the sweet time. Come on, mate. We are waiting for you. I already know that Chris Ted is just waiting for the race to end, and he might just end it before he even crosses. I know Chris very well. He doesn't really like these kind of games. Taking sweet time. Come on, lads, we're waiting. Well, I'm not going to be waiting for them. That's not my problem anymore. But ladies and gentlemen.
Halt.
Yep, and there he goes. Maybe he was out of fuel there.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. Maybe I was being a little bit too harsh then. I guess we have no way of finding out. But ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure once again provide the broadcast commentary for you. Alex, have you got any final words before we end the streamer?
Not too much. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Thank you, Rick, as always, for bringing me on. Had a great time, and hopefully we'll see you all next week.
Next week, we are starting with the SRO qualifiers here. So that's when things are getting serious here. These two events were just practice, which means that we are now finally dipping with our toes into the real event there. And there's a lot on the line here with a potential finish at a LAN tournament in London as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you guys next Monday.
Till I get up, time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us.